So I hope you understand. I've been rage baiting since I said that. I was really hoping this is the reaction I would get out of you if I just flipped it on its head, because I knew you wouldn't be prepared when I did it. There comes a moment in every man's life when he has to just sit here and realize that he's reached the peak of his lifetime. Brandon, I don't know about you, but I feel like I've reached my peak because the Avengers Doomsday has the Avengers Doomsday. Hold on, the Avengers Doomsday trailer has dropped. I feel like a complete man. Like, I don't need to conquer any of my demons. I think I don't need to go through any more of life. I think the Doomsday trailer in and of itself is enough. I wish we would just now be getting the trailer, because now we know way too much, because we have 4 effing mini trailers back from December that all are basically the same one, so that's great. But
you do realize you still need to, like, watch the movie, right? You say you've peaked. I'm gonna peak on December 18th. Actually, December 17th.
I feel like we have 2 different ideologies of what peak is. Trailer,
Probably.
which is very fun, versus movie, which, let's be honest, could ruin our minds and could completely fall apart in front of us.
Look, man, there are 2 reasons. There are 2 reasons why I'm watching Dune second. Why I'm doing Doomsday, then Dune. 1, spoilers. I want to have 0 chance of getting spoiled for Avengers Doomsday. 2, I have more faith in Dune Part 3 of being good than Doomsday, so if Doomsday sucks, at least I have Dune 3 to pick me up. I'm gonna be dead ass with you.
Is there a world where it's just cruel and both films are actually bad? Is there a world where that's a thing, and then we just walk out more disappointed?
In the grand multiverse of things, there is a world where both movies suck. I don't think we live in that world. I very highly doubt we do, but I will say, we already knew what this Avengers Doomsday trailer was going in. At
Correct.
least I did, because this is the mostly same trailer from CinemaCon and D23 and all the conventions that they've shown the media. There are some additions. Like, the biggest new thing that everyone's already seen the trailer is talking about is Loki was new in this trailer. So that one shot of Loki and the one shot of Cap holding Loki's TVA card, those are new.
Yeah.
Which actually does give us a huge idea into the story of the movie, because now it very much looks like the reason why everyone comes together is Loki. Loki is going to Captain America or Steve Rogers and being like, hey, there's an incursion. He's looking out Steve's window at an incursion actively happening, which gives Steve a justification to get involved. And it kind of seems like Loki's going to be kind of playing the role of the Watcher did in the What If series a little bit, where he's kind of like, you come with me, you come with me, he's the freaking Nick Fury of, we're putting together a team, but it's a multiversal team.
Well, and you know the irony of it, and this was probably done on accident. I'm going to be honest, I don't think Marvel's smart enough to do this. I just think it happens to be how the cards were laid out. But the whole reason the Avengers came together in the first film was to stop Loki. And now the reason the Avengers are probably coming together in this film is because of Loki, but not because Loki's bad. Like, it's because they're actually trying to help him. So I just think that's a cute little irony thing. I don't think Marvel's genuinely smart enough to think of that. I think that's just how the cards happen to lay out, and it's just like a happy accident. But
I do hope they play with that a little bit, just because obviously we've talked about this before, about how one of the Andrew from the Escape Pod talked about this, and it's kind of like fundamentally changed the way that I view Doomsday. And that is, don't view this as Avengers Endgame, view this as Avengers 1. View this as the setup for all these characters and the setup for the future of the MCU, not the ending of 10 years like Endgame was, which has really changed the way that I look at this movie. But I do think it's interesting, and I'm curious if they, like you said, if they did this on purpose, or even if they play with this at all. Loki really started the MCU with obviously Thor, but then the Avengers. Now we're getting into kind of the next phase, and Loki's kicking that next phase off as well. It's seemingly.
Sure.
And also, another thing I'm curious if they play with that is no one, not even Thor, knows what Loki did to save the universe. And that was actually a big plotline in Loki season 2, was that he's doing this and no one will ever know.
Nobody's ever going to know.
I'm curious if they ever play with that level of expectations where, like, Loki comes to them and he's like, hey, I'm the good guy now, and certain people, like, don't believe him or don't want to work with him, or if they just kind of glaze over that and Loki's just like, I'm the good guy now, come with me. I'd have a little bit of a problem if they did that.
Or if he's really as big of a villain as as really as big of a part of this film as we think that he is. There's a chance that he could be like a smaller part of this film, which I'm actually more inclined to believe.
I'm expecting it to be small, but I'm expecting that role, again,
to be pivotal.
The two scenes we got of him are him getting Captain America. Because if you didn't notice, so obviously there's the one scene of him looking out the window, and then there's the other scene where you think it's Loki, but they're holding the TVA card. That's Cap holding the TVA card. You can see the wedding band on his finger. So, and the hands look very Steve Rogers.
Sure.
So, we know that Loki goes to get Steve. Is he going to get the others? Is he going and talking to Professor X? Is he going and talking to anyone else? Or is he just there to get Steve?
So here's the running theory that I've seen, and I actually am kind of inclined to believe it, considering I don't think we're going to get Avengers versus X-Men, like, as its own movie. I think we're just going to get it in, like, this film.
Yeah.
Because the running theory that I've seen is that this film's going to start off, bearded Steve is going to come to, 616 universe with the Fantastic Four, but he's also going to come with, at the time, what we know as Doctor Doom, where the big shot in the room, if you clip this, you'll be able to know exactly how to clip this. The big shot when they're all in the room of the Thunderbolts Avengers Tower, that big shot, there's a clear spot in between Johnny Storm and Reed Richards where they looked like they digitally removed somebody or multiple people. I've heard the running theory that that's Doom, and that Doom,
I don't believe that. I've
Doom
seen
at
that
first
theory.
Is
I
going
don't
to start
believe
off as, that's why he gives the monologue of something's coming if we don't deter it, whatever. He sends the Avengers to the X-Men universe. He may even go with them. I would imagine he does, to kill the X-Men, to finish the incursion, to wipe out that hero, or to wipe out both sets of heroes. Or realistically, in his mind, what is probably to give a taste of what Battleworld could look like for himself, so he, can do whatever. I know it's a messy, because I don't know where you take your film from there, especially if that's the beginning of your film, when that itself could be like an entire film of, oh, he tricked them into fighting each other. Now we have to fight Doom. It's a little messy, but I don't exactly know where they'd go with it. But
I
that
don't
being
believe
said,
that theory personally. I think the whole idea that, like, Doom's gonna be the one to start, like, I don't think so, because we have the Doom monologue in the beginning, yes, but then it immediately switches to Loki, and Loki being like, hey, this bad, we need to make sure that we stop it. Which, granted, I think he is also mainly talking about the incursions, not necessarily Doom, but I do think, obviously, with the shot of him attacking Doom, he also is well aware that Doom is a part of this, if that makes sense.
Why use RDJ as Doctor Doom? You could have cast whoever as Doctor Doom. Why use specifically RDJ? That's the big running question since he was announced. I mean, well, yes, thank you, Disney. But secondly, if you're going to add it into your story in any way, wouldn't it be to kind of get people from that universe to trust you in any capacity? Even though it's a mangled, messed up version of his face, it's still the face of Tony Stark.
I really don't want them to go that direction, though. Like, I don't. There's also the theory, and I don't know if you've seen this one, but from San Diego Comic-Con, which I know we're not talking that much about all of the news that's dropped now.
Not super in depth, right.
There's also not a lot of news that I'm gonna talk, because I watched the Clayface trailer. I'm not gonna watch the Lanterns trailer that then comes out in less than a month, so I'm done with trailers for that. And Hall H, that's going to be the big one, which unfortunately will have occurred by the time this posts. But by the time of recording this, we have not seen it. Right. I think one of the interesting things that has been shown is the Latverian witch costume.
Oh my God, thank God you started that.
The reason why that's important is because there's I didn't come up with this, but people are talking online that the mask from the Latvian witch matches the mask from the Doom that we see at the end of Fantastic Four, and the mask of the actual Doom looks nothing like the mask that we see in the end of Fantastic Four, which I actually like that theory, because that kind of makes sense, because you'd think, oh, well, Franklin's reaching up because his face is mangled or whatever. What if it's a face that he recognizes? What if it's someone from Latveria that he recognizes? Doom's mom. Because there is a chance that they're going with the angle that they were all friends. That's the history of Doom. And so if this is the Doom from the Fantastic Four universe, and he recognizes, well, I guess technically he wouldn't recognize, that's kind of stupid because he's a child and he was born without seeing, so scrap that. But I think that being more of a, I guess, recognizable, I don't know. I think that the theory of it being not Doom because of the mask and seeing the mask of the Latvian witch that looks identical, I think is kind of a worthwhile theory to explore.
So I wasn't thinking about that, about how like the Fantastic Four masks might look similar. It might be that the case. I'd have to rewatch it to fully remember. That being said, when I saw that costume announced, my first reaction was, oh fuck. Did they just reveal that Scarlet Witch is back and alive? Like, in no way, shape, or form. I think we've been saying this since Mom came out. In what world would they have ever killed off Scarlet Witch? There's
Especially
no
in that
way.
Especially in that
way, where you don't see a body. If that is, then Marvel, that's just the laziest thing. You should have shown us like a body or something. Because like that's the most bullcrap thing. That being said, now we're at a point where it's genuinely the time to predict for somebody like that to come back, especially hot off the press of Vision Quest, with a show literally dealing with the ex-lover of, or I would say ex-lover, but the lover of Scarlet Witch, that you could easily have this be a thing. So what the heck? Why would you even call it the Witch? Why would you even call it that? I don't care if it's comic accurate.
The most running theory is that it's his mom, because Doom's mom does play a role in certain comic lines. I don't know how much he plays a role in Secret Wars. I don't think it's at all, if I remember correctly.
So then who would you have cast as Doom's mom?
I don't fucking know. Why does that matter?
I don't know.
Who's cast as it doesn't matter. I'm talking about the role that it plays in the story. I don't give a fuck who plays it.
That was just like an honest question, because like I don't know. RDJ's not young.
I mean, so, yeah.
All right, fair enough. All right.
You can also make the argument that
biggest
Doom...
F you to my question. All right, heard.
You can also make the argument that Doom and his vast knowledge of technology and magical powers kept his mom alive and young. Who knows?
Could. I also don't hate the idea that he's already multiversal traveled Doom. And he's already found maybe this is the reason he's touching the face of the person in the Doom mask is because it is a mom. It maybe isn't Doom's mom, but it's Franklin's mom. Like it's just
you
another variant.
You think it's a multiversal version of Sue?
It could be a what's the evil version of Sue? There is an evil version of her. It starts with an M. What is it?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Marvel Rivals knows it. Hold on.
Oh, you're talking about freaking Marvel Rivals? Yeah, I don't think... Granted, I know that's a comic book character, but it's not a popular one. I don't think they're gonna...
Sue Storm... Malice! That's the one I was trying to think of. Malice. It could just be Malice.
Yeah, but Malice isn't a Doom... or a Doom variant.
Doesn't matter. I'm just spitballing here. Look, I'm just spitballing in the conversation. One theory I have said about evil variant, though, and this one has been made very prevalent, just amongst the community, that there is a chance that the bearded Steve Rogers, this is where I was going originally before we went on the side Doom costume tangent, that the Steve Rogers we see that takes the hammer from Thor is actually Captain Hydra, and it is just a mole planted in there.
I have seen that theory. I don't like the theory that it's an... I thought to myself, oh, maybe this is a variant Steve before this trailer dropped. After this trailer dropped, this is our Steve. They're not playing with us. This is our Steve. The reason why I think that is because Loki went and got him. Loki is going to go and get the real Steve Rogers. If we didn't already know that that's how Steve got involved in this, then I would maybe think, oh, this could be Captain Hydra or a variant or something like that. But the fact that we actively see him holding Loki's TVA card and Loki looking out Steve's window, I very much believe. Also, Captain Hydra would not be worthy to wield the hammer. It's not based on like, oh, Steve Rogers as a name can wield the hammer. It's the content of your character. So the content of Captain Hydra's character is not going to be able to wield Mjolnir. That's just not going to happen.
I'm just spitballing, and I'm more inclined to believe you're right, but it is still a possibility, and it's a big possibility considering that it is Marvel and its Avengers, and they might try to do some big twists like that. Even though, really, I'm going to be completely honest. In a film that's multiversal and whatnot, I don't think you could really tell the most basic ass story, and I think that actually would. Here's my thing: you could tell the most basic story for Avengers Doomsday, and I still feel like it would be okay because there's so much you're throwing at the screen that even if it's the most basic story, you have the X-Men, you have the Fantastic Four, two groups in which we've never seen in a film together. Let alone the fact that this is the original X-Men from the 2000s coming back.
Yeah,
like there are just so many things that you're throwing at the screen that you could tell the most basic story. You don't have to make it very convoluted.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm expecting this movie to be a mess.
It's going to be.
I'm not saying it's going to be bad. I'm saying I'm expecting it to be a mess. Because my running theory is that this movie is, and I think this is the most popular running theory, so it's not like I came up with it, but my theory is that this movie is going to be a lot of meeting, a lot of establishing, a lot of fighting, a lot of chaos. Then it's gonna end with that big, oh shit, Battle World gets created moment, kind of like how Infinity War ended with the snap. Sure. And that's going to kick us into Secret Wars. That's kind of where I think this is going to go, this is going to be, and I actually think, if done well, which I know a lot of people are worried, I trust the Russo brothers, not implicitly, but I do trust the Russo brothers. They've never made a bad superhero movie. They've made bad movies, but never made a bad superhero movie. I do trust them to be able to structure it in an interesting way, because if you have the chaos, that can actually kind of work, because it is a chaotic situation. You're not going to be able to perfectly organize when, if you look at the screen, there are 3 worlds colliding. You have the X-Men universe, you have the Fantastic Four universe, and you have our main Earth continuity of the MCU universe, all colliding together all at once. That's what those 3 planets are. So this is a very unexpected, chaotic moment for all of our main crew that, mind you, we have been building towards. And that's one thing I also wanted to talk about, and I'm curious your thoughts on as well. Big conversation right now. And I want to give a shout out to Sammy J. I don't know if you know Sammy J. He's a big TikToker, way bigger than us. But shout out to him, because he made an amazing video on this where he kind of quelled, I didn't have that many fears, I did have some, but he quelled a lot of the fears on the whole, they didn't build up to Doom, they didn't build up to this movie conversation. No. I think that, watch Sammy J's video if you haven't, to you and the audience, because he puts it very, very well, but essentially, he brings up a lot of good points about, like, okay, what did they really build up to with Thanos? 3 to 4 post-credit scenes of him sitting in a chair? Yes, they had the Infinity Stones, but they've also been setting up the incursions and the timeline problems, just like they set up with the Infinity Stones. Yeah. Yes, there's obviously the argument of Kang. That's a big one, but that could also be easily addressed. Kang can be very easily addressed. Kang is not he is a big threat in the comics, but he's never Thanos level. He's never Doom level. He's kind of just Kang.
So here's what I'll say, and I say this because now that you like said the name, the name didn't click, but like I know who this guy is because I saw this as well. Mm-hmm. He is correct. If anything, we've actually had more hints or build to Doomsday because of the fact that we've had more movies than we did in phases 1 through 3 combined. I feel like at this point, to talk about incursions and this and that. I think the reason everybody is so fatigued by it, and I bring up the word fatigued because the word is Marvel fatigue with a lot of people, or Marvel slop. Unfortunately, I'm just saying it. Don't hate me, internet. We have had a lot of Marvel slop. Now, granted, I'm a piggy who will eat all that up because I friggin' love some of the things that Marvel do, even in their worst movies. But unlike phases 1 through 3, there were connective tissues that built, but the films themselves were pretty decent, with the exception of maybe like a Thor Ragnarok. Not Thor Ragnarok, Thor the Dark World.
I was going to say, you better not be shitting on Thor Ragnarok on this podcast.
No.
Absolutely not.
Thor the Dark World. It's a lot messier for phases 4 through 6. And I will bring up the point of Kang. That is still an excuse because they clearly set that up from the very beginning. That was their roadmap. And then the second Jonathan Majors incident happened, plans went out the window. Now they got caught with their tail tucked between their legs, and they're now rushing to tell a story that they were not probably really wanting to tell in its entirety. Because let's be completely honest, Doom in some way, some fashion was 100% going to be a part of this storyline, because you can't leave Doom out of Secret Wars.
Correct.
I don't think there was ever an idea where they weren't going to do that. But the first movie originally was the Kang Dynasty, and they were going to deal with Kang. Doom, at some point, was probably going to be in that. And this is also why the running theory of Doom could start out as a good person trying to convince them of whatever reason. Because if the Avengers think Kang is the big threat, when Secret Wars finally hits and you find out that Doom, somewhere in the middle, was that big threat this whole time, lurking in the shadows, nobody had an idea, it makes the Secret Wars film feel a lot more completed. Again, that being said, I still feel like it's messy. Like, I feel like their build anyway was messy, but like now because they're rewriting all of it and trying to get the story to connect in a way that makes sense, it's going to feel messy. And the reports that I keep hearing of the Russo brothers are struggling to find the film in the editing room is awful, because you should never struggle to find your film in the editing room.
No, that happens way more often than you think. That happens way more often than you think, and I do think are probably quotes taken out of context, if I had to guess. Because there are a lot of times where you don't know what that means. That could mean we're looking for the perfect cut of the movie. We struggling to find the story. Yes, that could be the case, but that's not the Russo brothers that are saying that. These are reports, leaks coming out that we have no context for, no information. And I think just like, I think directors and people in the industry talk shit all the time that they shouldn't say. That is almost always not true. That's why, going based off, we can't find the film, I guarantee you, hell, I heard reports from Endgame that they didn't have the full movie put together until the end. Like, that's just the case with making movies. And Endgame is my favorite movie of all time, despite its flaws. So I think that is just such a... I understand why people would hear that headline and go, oh my god, this movie's going to be shit. I think it's kind of stupid to panic over the comments of a movie you haven't seen yet.
As far as shots from the trailer, because I'm kind of like going back and talking about the specific trailer itself.
Yeah.
The only thing that kind of like worried me shot-wise, like honestly, most of the CG looked pretty good and convincing. Obviously, we're still months out, so visual effects can be hammered home and worked on a lot more.
Was it the Thor Doom?
No, it was. Actually, I think the Thor Doom one was about. I think it's like on par with like an Endgame, or at least.
No, I disagree. Or at least there were some parts of that Thor Doom that looked a little weak.
Yeah, but I also do believe that there are parts of Endgame that also look a little weak at times.
True. And also, again, they could easily continue to polish this movie. It is 5.5 months away. So
I'll get to that, because there's an example of things that they definitely polished. I was actually talking about the Namor flying scene. That looked awful.
Yeah, I'll absolutely
really
give you that.
bad.
I mean, but here's the thing.
Took me out of the trailer.
Supergirl flying earlier this year looked awful. Superman flying, even with as good as that movie was, didn't look fantastic. I think there's just a struggle to make kind of head-on, two-face flying shots look good.
Yeah.
Head-on, like, flying shots can look good. Head-on flying shots, I can think of very seldom examples that even look passable, and this, unfortunately, is not one of them.
I mean, I guess Chris Hemsworth is Thor, but has he ever really had a head-on shot of him
that
flying?
I know of. We've seen him fly a lot, but I've never head-on flying. I can't think of any.
And not off the top of my head. That shot looked awful. You already mentioned the final Doom fight sequence. Again, I think some of those things will get polished up, so I'm not concerned about it. And the reason I say that is because when you go back to the X-Men trailer for Doomsday, the shot of Cyclops, which is already was epic, even with the CGI looking bad, shooting the eye beam up with the Sentinels in the background looked a little off. They play that shot again in this trailer, but it actually looks a lot more. I think like just
polished. It looks more polished.
It's better.
Yeah,
it looks better. I'm not saying it's perfect because it's a
well,
man
again,
shooting CGI beam out of his eyes, but
we have 5.5 months left for this movie. I think it is totally reasonable to expect. That's half a year.
Yeah,
most movies are only made for 3 to 4 years, so you still have a good chunk of this movie's development time left. And I hope at least, especially with the amount of people talking about specific shots looking bad, that they take that feedback, even if they weren't planning on it, but take that feedback now and go, okay, let's go and polish that up a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. Look, like I said, kind of before we started this, the trailer did pretty good as far as giving us some new things. And I say new things, but like we knew they were coming because it's already like a comic, like not Comic-Con, but like D23 had this trailer, CinemaCon had this trailer. Yeah. Like a bunch of our places already had this trailer. So it was just a matter of time before the public got it. But for the new shots they showed in it that weren't there, looked pretty good. Again, this looks like a film that's going to have a lot of fun moments, and I'm just worried about the actual structure of the film itself. So
that's why I think a lot of this movie is going to be introductions. It's going to be people meeting each other, and it's going to be pure chaos. And that is what's going to build into Secret Wars, being the actual kind of like more put together film, but purposefully so. Because I do think that a chaotic movie can work very well, especially when we already know that this movie is not going to have a definitive ending. Like, Doomsday isn't going to be a definitive start and end. It's going to be a definitive start, but it's not going to be a definitive end. That's obviously the role of Secret Wars. So,
last thing I'll say, and I want to point this out because I actually... this is literally the last thing I'll say about this trailer because it's another shot of somebody getting removed, and this one I actually got from the escape pod, and I don't think it's the correct answer, but I do believe there is somebody back there fighting. You can see, I don't know if it's Yelena or Mystique, one of the two.
Yes.
One of them is kicking somebody in the background that isn't there, so they've removed somebody from the fight. So it's one of two things. One, in the words of the escape pod, it's Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Piss off. I know that's not it.
Well, that was a joking theory. That was one that they got from that was one that they got from their fans. That wasn't even them.
They'll get that from Secret Wars.
I was in the Discord call where they broke down the trailer scene by scene that got posted on their Patreon, and that was something that a fan brought up jokingly.
Yeah, there's a chance that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man could be in like Secret Wars. I actually see that being a pretty likely possibility with Hugh Jackman and Reynolds probably being in that as well. But honestly, I would imagine that's probably one of the other X-Men characters that have not been announced, assuming that they are returning, like a Halle Berry or a Famke Jensen as Jean Grey. Like, it could be one of those two returning.
Another one that I heard, I think it might have been the escape pod as well that was mentioned, or maybe a fan, was that, maybe it's Nightcrawler. Now, I don't think that makes entire sense why they would remove them, though, because we already have confirmation that Nightcrawler is in this movie, so I think it'd be kind of weird if they just got removed.
Unless the effects just looked so bad that they were like, it's better we just remove them and then work on this over time. But I guess. Really don't like that option. I don't think that makes sense.
Speaking of effects, though, I know you said that was the last thing you wanted to talk about, but another scene, because you brought up the whole, like, this fight.
Sure.
How do you feel about Mystique?
Okay, I have no problem with Mystique. Why is everybody blowing up over this?
No, I think her transformation looks amazing.
I have no problem with it. I think the costume is comic accurate. I think it look, again, unfinished effects, and I'm sure they probably CGI'd most of Rebecca Romijn, unfortunately, instead of just like putting her in like the blue makeup, like they probably are like they are doing with Nightcrawler, because that was the one thing that Alan Cumming said he wasn't going to do, was get back in that blue makeup. He just wanted to be CGI'd entirely. But I think it looks fine. I think the transformation looks good. I don't get why the internet's blowing up over it.
I think it doesn't... It's because it doesn't look like Mystique from the Fox universe. Like it doesn't look as one-to-one. Mystique does look, and let's be honest, and this isn't me, this is the internet. She doesn't look as like needle thin as she did. I think that's where a lot of the complaints are coming from. I think it's stupid. That's stupid. Obviously, I think that's a ridiculous thing to complain about.
That's incredibly stupid.
Especially when, again, the transformation looks so good. Like, you want to talk about finished effects? I'm pretty sure the entire effects department worked on the Mystique transformation scene.
Guys, we got a trailer drop it. We got to get this done. Everybody work on one specific part of this, and we're just gonna get there when we get there. No, I thought that looked good, so I have no problem with it. I if it's really just about the appearance of Rebecca Romijn, please piss off. That's like complaining about Lupita Nyong in Odyssey. That's just completely absurd. Nobody cares.
Well, she gives clearly a good performance. People do, just only idiots.
I was about to say, like, people can give good performances and still maybe not. Like, it's Rebecca Romijn. She does not look like she did 20 plus years ago.
Yeah. Nor
would I ever expect that of anybody who's probably, let's be honest, going to have the smallest part of all the X-Men in this film. I
think you bringing up the Odyssey as an example is perfect, because all of the people that were complaining about the casting for the Odyssey were complaining about characters that got less screen time than they had airtime of complaints. Like, Helen of Troy, maybe 2 minutes worth of screen time. Oh no! Cry me a fucking river. Mystique, if you're expecting her to be a main character of this movie, you're wrong. I don't know why you would ever think that. So, like, okay, she doesn't look exactly like she looked 20 years ago. Yeah, buddy, I'd like to introduce you to something called age. Something you're going to do as well if you live long enough to age.
Well, and let's be honest, the Fox X-Men timeline's so messy.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't really care, and like they look like the X-Men from the Fox universe, but they could also make the argument of, oh, this is technically not the Fox universe, this is a universe that's very similar to the Fox universe, but you know, various different things changed, or this didn't happen. Whatever. Yeah. I say whatever.
This could be our Fox universe, the Fox universe that was built up. It could not be. Who fucking knows? And who fucking cares? We'll find out in 5.5 months. Because, like, I don't know. Okay, one last... I just have a lot to say about this, but I know we're always on a time crunch. But one last question. On a time crunch. This is a big topic of conversation. Are you more, less, or the same excited for Avengers Doomsday after watching the trailer?
I'm actually more excited. I've seen a lot of talk about this and people saying that they're less excited. I'm actually more excited, but I think it's also because, like, I loved the first trailers in December. I really like that. I watch that X-Men one quite often, actually, just because, like, that one really touches my heartstrings and I really get excited over it. This is the first time seeing all of it kind of come together, and like seeing Doom, which is, I think, the real focal point of what we kind of needed, even though it was so little. Just kind of seeing it all kind of take place and come together a little bit made me more excited for it, even though there were, like, the visual effects shots. You hear things that go on in the background of production side, but, like, just seeing the trailer made me just elated and happy with what we could potentially get. So I'm more excited. I'm not, like, gung-ho, like, oh, yeah, this is going to be 100% flawless, but, like, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not more excited than I was. I definitely am.
I'm glad, because I'm also very excited. I think, again, a lot of the people saying, oh, I didn't feel like the same that I did when watching the Infinity War trailer, or as I felt watching the Endgame trailer. This was never going to give you that. This was never supposed to give you that. I'm sorry if you went in expecting that and were disappointed. That's your own fault. I think a lot of people blame studios for their own expectations not being met when the studio never set up those expectations to be the case. And so I'm very excited. I think the trailer was very good. Obviously, again, we already knew about pretty much everything that happened, but I think actually seeing it on screen, polished, I am very, very excited, and it makes it feel very real. It makes it feel like now this movie is for sure happening.
I will joke, because I've seen a lot of people, especially with the recent, like, clips from the Spider-Man movie have come out with Punisher and whatnot. I think it's really funny that and they're all right. You could put Punisher into Avengers Doomsday, and it wouldn't really hurt the lineup at all because all the people in Doomsday, with the exception of Thor, are just people. Even some of the X-Men, they're just people. It's like you could throw Punisher in there, and he would do just as much damage as Yelena and whoever else. So that's really funny to me.
Thor meeting his new crew. What do you do? Punch and shoot. Okay. What do you do? Punch and shoot. Okay. What do you do? What? Punch and shoot. What the fuck? Because I think the funny thing that that everyone has to remember though is a good chunk of there were 5 original Avengers. 2 of them's powers were punch and shoot.
What do you do?
Now we're just working at a bigger scale.
What do you do? I punch and shoot. What do you do? Oh, I'm a godlike being. Oh, great, we got another one, but I can only do it when I activate my dark side. God, what are we doing?
I'm stronger than Superman. I have the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns. Oh shit, that's great. Yeah, but I have to be very depressed to do it.
God.
What? Are you fucking Thor's just maybe that's why Thor goes to take on Doom himself is because he introduces himself and I was like, oh, we only punch and so he's like, fuck it, I'll do this myself, and then gets walked.
That's when you queue up the Eternals and have the Eternals walk in, and you're just like, oh, great, a team that's actually competent enough to handle this situation.
Yeah, because characters that I expect to be in this movie that I honestly can't even remember if were announced, but just weren't in this trailer yet. Monica Rambeau, extraordinarily powerful character as Photon. You have Captain Marvel herself, Miss Marvel. I'm expecting a lot of the other more... I believe it was confirmed. I don't know if she had a chair, but America Chavez, I'm pretty sure is going to be in this movie.
Well, Strange also, but
Doctor Strange. Yeah.
Here's the thing with Strange, and I've seen this argument made from a couple people. Strange has been so nerfed over the past few years, especially since like Endgame and whatnot. That's just like okay. Actually, no, not even since Endgame. Since his first movie, Strange has been
Dormammu. I've come to bark, and everything after that.
It's just like, bro, what happened? What did we do with Strange? I don't know. We need to kick into this. I love this. Bottom line is, yes, I'm excited. We'll see what comes of it. Please make this movie at least semi-decent. And not just a bunch of moments.
I am expecting to be blown away. As blown away as I was with the fact that I was, in fact, very wrong about the release date for the trailer.
Speaking of blown away, maybe one of the properties that we're talking about being blown away, I don't know what segue that was, but ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Nerdy Nimrods podcast.
Will we ever get good at intros? No.
No, we've had a few that are okay. But welcome back to the Nerdy Nimrods podcast, the only podcast in the world where your 2 favorite Nimrods talk all things nerdy. I am your host this evening, Carson, a.k.a. Juggernaut, here with my forever co-host,
Brandon, a.k.a. Parrotfish.
Today, we continue our talks of X-Men 97, House of the Dragon, and for some real big fans out there of this property, a little bit of some Last Airbender for you. We had the Aang movie drop, we watched it, and we're very excited to talk about that. That's going to be great. Spoilers for all of the properties that we talk about. Actually, I think for every single one, there is like spoilers to talk about.
Yeah.
So let's, before we get into that, Brandon, buddy, booby, how we doing?
Did you just call me booby?
No, booby, bubby. That's what
I heard booby. I thought you called me booby.
If I did, no, clip it. I promise you I didn't. I promise you I didn't.
I will, in fact, be listening back to that because I swear to God, you called me booby on the podcast, and I damn near almost ended it and made us re-record.
Did you re-record the whole 40 minutes?
Yep.
Of Avengers?
Yep. Ladies and
gentlemen, we did have an episode for you, but unfortunately, we had to talk about the Avengers Doomsday trailer for about 2 hours because it's just the same conversation.
Yep. Yep. No, but I'm good. I am the clock. I can't speak. Apparently, I'm not good. But the clock clicks ever closer to me moving. I have signed my lease. I have packed up at least half of my apartment. I've got my electricity set up. I've booked the moving truck. I am ever marching closer to our first in-person episode, which I'm not going to announce the date of because hopefully everything goes according to plan, but it will be sometime start of August. Thanks, Carson. Anyways, how are you doing?
Tired, exhausted, a bit of a time crunch. A bunch of my family are going out of town, and my birthday's secondly next week. So on the podcast, we'll be able to celebrate that, which is great. But we got to celebrate my birthday this weekend because everybody's leaving. So I was told of this like maybe like 24 to 48 hours ago. Hey, noon, you don't got any obligation. Like you're going to this event. I'm like, okay, sure. So, thankfully, I'm not giving away my thoughts. I am not going to have much to say about some of these topics. Either because there wasn't much to talk about or because maybe I'm just not like able to really hold a conversation. We'll see what happens. Actually, now that I'm thinking about that, I'm going to pull up my notes. Brandon, let's get into this. I'm actually going to flip it on you probably more than what you thought. Let's start with 97, because I feel like there's some pretty good conversation pieces we can start with in that. Brandon, go ahead and give me your quick thoughts on
whoa. You can't just do this to me. I'm not ready. I was thinking of my thoughts of House of the Dragon.
Would you like to get more ready now?
I'd like to start with House of the Dragon.
Fine. Who made you? Who died and made you host?
We've talked about this for weeks about how we would start. So I just assumed.
I'll be honest,
because
I'm
you're
rage-baiting.
the stickler for this, mind you. I never care. You are the one at the beginning of all these calls when we have our like 20-minute prelude to these recordings where we talk about all these things and you go, no, we have to do it in the same order we always do it in, which is House of the Dragon, X-Men 97, and then whatever else.
So I hope you understand, I've been rage baiting since I said that. I was really hoping this is the reaction I would get out of you if I just flipped it on its head, because I knew you wouldn't be prepared when I did it. So, no, all jokes aside, go ahead and give me your reviews for this week's episode of House of the Dragon.
This is what, episode 5, right?
Episode
of season
5.
2? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 5 is really good. I really enjoyed this episode. I think we've talked about before, the last 2 episodes were far from bad. They were just definitely more building episodes. This is the kind of, I don't want to call it the major payoff, but we are starting to get more into the balance of paying off and continuing to build. The biggest areas of that would be Sir Christian Cole, which I will always be elated when we see Sir Christian Cole suffer. That was a big plot line in this episode, and it brought me so much genuine elation and joy. I loved it. The only thing I loved more than seeing Sir Christian Cole get shit on and almost die and realize his entire life is worthless because it's true is when Aegon realized his entire life was worthless. I talked about last week how one of my favorite like whole shots of the entire show is Aegon kissing a shitty boot. I think we have a close contender for second, and that is Aegon getting told that he's a terrible person to his face. Not only a bad leader, a bad person. And again, all jokes aside, I do think that that is just really good payoff to what we've been building to. It's been very clear with the Sir Christian Cole plotline that we've been building to his admission of, I'm worthless. Like, I've only ever been used as a pawn, and if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna go die on my own terms, which I think is kind of ironic, because dying on his own terms, his goal is still marching to an end to fight for someone else's war. I guess the argument could be made that he's fighting for Alicent, the one that he loves, but still, he knows that he's been used by Alicent and used by Rhaenyra and used by pretty much everyone. So him finally realizing that and admitting that out loud as his entire world crumbles, I think is a really good payoff. Obviously not the final payoff, but for now, to what we've been building to with his character. Same with Aegon having that kind of crushing realization of, yeah, no, I kind of did get myself into this situation. I was kind of a piece of shit. I was kind of a bad leader. And again, just like with the shitty boot thing, I don't think this is going to necessarily flip the script and make him a good guy, but I do think it's very necessary to pay off what that has been building towards. I think all the stuff, again, with Rhaenyra is interesting. I think Rhaenyra this episode does take a very significant backstep, though. Anything that happens in the castle very much focuses more on Daemon because of the Watch. the Watch is having a lot of their men get slaughtered. I think that ending, though, caught me so off guard, where everyone is dead and you have the writing on the wall and the guts are being spilled out. That really was like a big shock factor, because I was kind of expecting that Damon would get a handle on this, but this is one of the first instances where we've really seen someone get the better of Damon. And I love that that's kind of where we've been building to, is his cockiness and his kind of persistence kind of biting him in the ass, and him having to realize, like, oh, this is a way bigger problem. Now, you can shift some of that blame on Rhaenyra for not taking it as seriously as she should have. I do think there's a lot of valid blame to be placed there, but I think a lot of it also goes on Damon. And I think, again, well, this wasn't the big battle, monumental payoff. A lot is finally starting to pay off in small ways while continuing to build in others. And I think roping that all together, after the first 2 episodes, or the most recent 2 episodes being solely building with almost no payoff, I think now that we're getting into the mixture of it, it really works.
Yeah. Yeah, House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 5 is just another episode of House of the Dragon, but I think this episode does a really good job of starting to slowly see some payoff of things we've been building towards, while it's like also like continuously still building to like bigger things. It's more like a ramp up. Like, whereas we were on a steady just incline, now we're just going straight up the mountain, full steams ahead with just balls to the walls craziness. I love everything they do with Christian Cole in this episode, which is shocking considering Christian Cole is my least favorite character in this entire show. Please, HBO, just kill him off. Get rid of him. I want to see him burnt at the stake. Please and thank you. But I love his monologue, and I love the speech he gives to the men, and the speech he gives to Hightower, and all of it. I love the speech that he has. I love the work they did with his character in this episode. Just realizing that he is nothing. He's just a worthless pawn in this entire thing. And I mean, granted, this is the thoughts that he's had since season 2, after the first instance of Dragon Warfare. But like realizing like this is just bullshit. Like I'm just gonna die here. This whatever. Like the fact that he literally knows that his life is worthless is incredible to me, and I love that character work for him. Damon this episode's really just like a big airing of grievances and frustration episode. Rhaenyra getting frustrated with Damon for running off to handle other situations, or Damon getting frustrated with Rhaenyra for not handling this situation better, and him having to get involved as much as he is. Because in a lot of ways, Damon is right. This situation should have been dealt with a long time ago, and the way that should have been and could have been done is you burn the entire Hightower army. When Damon suggested it. He even says that in this episode. We should have burned them when we had the chance. Absolutely, you should have. You probably could have actually just stopped every instance that, would have come up from it. Instead, you decided to be merciful, and this is what happened. So I think that it's a very interesting dynamic to show between them. Everything they do with Aegon and Larys is really good. Aegon literally getting told off, being told he's a horrible person is great. I like what they do with Aemond in this episode, and everything they do with Alicent in this episode is actually also pretty interesting too. I don't know what's going to happen to them now. They're just locked in that room. The second they were like, oh, there's no door, we can't get back out, I was like, okay, so they're going to drop yep, there goes the light. I was like, okay, well, that's great. Now you're just stuck there. I don't know. Another very good, intriguing episode. I'm assuming next episode we're going to get more build, and then the episode after that we'll probably get some payoff to like a bigger scope thing. But I think we're in a very interesting spot of this season that just, again, after episode 2, everything really did kind of kick into high gear of just like, okay, now we know what direction we're going in. And thank God Aemon did not get the Harrenhal curse, and he's not just sitting there the entire season doing nothing. At least he's doing something. It's great. Thank God. I mean,
he fought some mercenaries, but like,
it's still more than Damon did. Damon daydreamed in a bed.
I don't know if I'm gonna give you that. I don't know if I agree. He's doing something, but so was Damon. And it still wasn't the most interesting part of that
Damon
season.
Damon was getting a different kind of action than Aemon was.
Well, because Aemon's also having dreams.
Yeah, we're just not seeing much of those dreams, if anything.
Well, he's not full on hallucinating like Damon was, where he's kind of like walking around and like sleepwalking in the tower or whatever. But he is still, we're seeing like kind of the bits and pieces and mainly the noises of his visions, where he hears his dragon, he hears his brother, he hears his mom. God, this man I want him to die, obviously, like I want most people in this series to just die. But just give this man a busty mommy and send him off to an island by himself, and I think he'll be happy. Like, that's all this man needs.
To be fair, there is a part of this show, and this is actually what I think this episode does so well with his character specifically. And this is what the show does so well with so many of these characters. You hate a lot of these characters, sure, and I'm not going to stop hating Aemon, but you do feel bad for him in a lot of ways because, or like you see the build and how, I'm not saying he was the greatest child ever, but like the way he was pranked by Rhaenyra's kids when he was young, like, oh, you're getting a dragon, and he just doesn't get it.
I can
as a person who getting the eye cut out. I mean, all of it. Like, he has had a traumatic childhood. Aegon was always the favorite child, and he was always second fiddle, so he never got that attention. And so now it's all just like coming back to fruition. So like, he made his own bed. He deserves to die. But like, you feel bad for him in a certain way, especially with episodes like this, where it's clearly he just wants the love and affection of somebody.
I wouldn't say I feel bad for him necessarily, but I agree with you that I think I can very clearly, there's no question how he got here. I'm not sitting here being like, why is he so evil? Why is he so angry all the time? Why is he, like, hate his brother? Like, all of these things were very much set up. I mean, we're having carryover from season 1 and season 2 actions, and I think I fully agree with you. The show does a great job of explaining to you why the characters are doing what they're doing. I don't think there's really ever been a point in time where I've ever wondered why a character is doing what they're doing in a way that doesn't feel intended. And I think Aemon's a great example of that, where it's like, yeah, absolutely. But for me personally, that doesn't mean I feel bad for him in any way.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I just think that there's something interesting they're doing with his character. It just kind of makes me feel a little bad for him, but I get your logic behind it. There's not like a great place to start. It's all kind of just like hodgepodge together. But let's start with Aegon. I think. Just that was my God, bro. That's satisfying. Laris, you're my goat. Thank you.
Well, and I'm gonna be honest. I wasn't expecting that to like. It felt like a natural kind of boiling point of their whole dynamic the past few episodes, but I really wasn't expecting it. Like, I was kind of caught off guard by just how brutally honest he was, because he was always such a loyal servant to the crown. He always, granted, had his own best interest at heart, but he always loyally served the crown and was very, I guess, careful with his words, I think is the best way to put it. And I think that's what makes the scene so surprising but so intriguing, is this is kind of the first time in the entire show since he was introduced where he's not mincing words, he's not ulterior motive, he's not hiding anything. He's just speaking from the heart. He's speaking from all of our hearts.
Yeah. And again, with something like Laris, you know, like you said, I mean, he has literally been one of the most loyal people to the crown. Not completely loyal out of like foot fetish and whatnot.
I was gonna say, you know, like jerking off to Alicent's feet, you know.
But I mean, he's been about as loyal to that house as he can, and now he's literally gotten to the point where, hey, I'm still gonna be loyal, but I'm gonna tell you how it is. You're just a piece of shit, and not even just as not a ruler, man. Just as a person, you are awful. So sorry. I don't know. It's really well done, and I like whenever they eventually get to not Jason. It's
the other Lannister. I can't remember his name.
One Lannister died in battle. The other Lannister's still alive. I don't remember which one it is.
Well, and I think that kind of goes back to, this is the Lannister that got thrown off the boat during the Battle of the Gullet. And that was one thing that we had talked about back when the Battle of the Gullet happened a few weeks ago was, did he survive? If you don't see a body, they didn't die. We obviously learned that with the sea serpent. But it's kind of crazy how big of a trek this man made when we find him in the middle of the ocean. And then all of a sudden, he's just there. And I didn't recognize him at first because he shows up and I'm like, there's no way, because it's such a, quick shot of who it is, and then it cuts away to the next scene. So you don't really get to, fully breathe in it until you cut to the dialogue scene. And I looked down, I was like, is that? And then they cut away, and I'm like, no way. And then they cut back, and I'm like, oh, shit, okay, he lives, apparently.
Well, and I just want to clarify this. Is this Thailand or Jason? I think
there's
it's
two Lannisters. One got beheaded in battle, the one where Daemon was, and then the other one got thrown off a boat. There's only two, and one of them is confirmed dead.
Yeah, but which one was on the boat? Was it Jason or Thailand?
He was the one that was the master of coin. I can't remember. You're the one that's way better at this than I am.
Yeah, it's still... Hold on. Jason or Thailand?
You're just gonna Google Jason or Thailand? That's not gonna help you.
I typed in Battle of Gullet at the end. Thailand. It's Thailand,
okay.
Not Jason. I don't know why I thought it was Jason. It's Thailand. So... Yeah, I don't know. When he came back, I wasn't, surprised. I also knew that it was going to happen at some point, but I was like, okay, well, there he is. That's why when you were like, hey, we didn't see a body, is he coming back? I'm like, I don't know.
Well, that's the difficult part about theorizing with this show is you can't say anything. You can't theorize. You know what happened.
If something deviates or changes a little bit, I can theorize about certain things.
Has there been any major changes or deviations that you feel comfortable talking about?
Not without giving away some other things, like things that have happened that will play more into effect later on.
Okay.
But I mean, we'll get into that's a different conversation. We'll get into that later.
Okay. Yeah, but no, with Thailand coming back, and I that's what kind of Aegon getting called a piece of shit. You're like, oh, maybe he's gonna do some self-internalizing. He's gonna realize, do some reflection. No, he just stabbed a dude 20 minutes later.
He just
and specifically was like, you will call me king, and you're like, okay, so you're proving you're proving us right here. You could have taken this as a big opportunity of growth and realization. No, nope, not at all.
He's reached the point where it's like, all right, I guess I'm a piece of shit. I'm still gonna be king.
Yep.
I don't care.
Well, no, because he has now agreed. I think the one thing that this scene did do until he stabbed the guy, and I think this is going to obviously, again, change the direction, is after he was called a piece of shit, he said, okay, get the ships. Because that was the whole thing that originally was the plan, was to get him on ships and sail him far away and have him not rule and have him just lay low so he can live. Because if he ever wants to rule again, he'd have to fight. And we all know he's not winning any combats.
He's not able to do that.
Correct. Right. Even before he was maimed, he's not winning very many combat battles, especially if Daemon is the representative. But I think him admitting, hey, let's just sail away, let me just live, was kind of a big moment in a way. But then it was, I don't want to say immediately undone, but it very much is okay, he's still a piece of shit.
Well, and I don't know how much of it's actually the lust to rule as much as it's more so now he's driven to kill his brother. Because he knows that the reason they're in the position they're in is because of the yes, he drunkenly went into battle, he got burned, he was there, but Aemon also didn't exactly help in any way.
Well, in fact, if you go back to that battle, he actively is the reason. It's not just the drunkenness played a big factor, and that's how they can kind of cover it up to the people who know too much.
Right.
Not to the public. They still don't know that Aegon got maimed to this day.
Yeah.
They know that the dragon died because obviously we see it used as a tourist attraction. But most people also, granted, that information didn't get very far. This isn't a big, because after that scene, they had the big celebration in the streets with the head of the other dragon that died in the battle. They don't know that Aegon got made. They, to my knowledge, other than rumors and stuff, of course, they don't know anything. They think Aegon's dead, though. That's how Rhaenyra is able to rule, is she lied, saying Aegon and Aemon are dead, which we obviously know is not true.
We know that's not exactly true. They are still very much alive. Yes. Okay. Well, changing gears, we can talk about Cole more if you want. There's not like much to talk about Cole. It's just some of the actions and realizations that he kind of had, which are really, really good. Like, again, realizing that it's just furthering the realization, like, you are just a pawn. I'm going to be this person now because we're worthless. This is pointless. Like, it doesn't really matter. We're all going to die anyway.
Yeah.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like, because again, he got a lot of good speeches out of it this episode, and as somebody who hasn't done anything the entire season, I'm glad he got those speeches.
Yeah.
But now that I'm even like saying that, like, he hasn't done anything this entire season, he hasn't done anything this entire season beyond making these speeches. So at what point are you going to do anything more with Cole beyond just the...
He's gonna die in battle. Actually, I'm gonna be honest. I hope he doesn't die in battle. I hope he doesn't get that satisfaction. I hope something else happens to kill him. Obviously, you can't tell me anything. But, like, his whole speech this episode was about how he didn't want to die a pawn of an army that he is being used by. And so I think it'd be very poetic with how shitty of a person and character that he is, that either he does end up dying in battle for someone else, or he dies like nothing. And he isn't able to die on his own terms. He just dies like nothing. I think those would be kind of the two ways that I could see him going out. Now, at the end of this episode, and the fact that their march was stopped, and, I'm going to build a raft, and I'm going to get across, and maybe he dies in the river. Maybe that's the desperation, and he dies in the river. I don't know, but I think... Yeah. I love what they did with this character this episode. This is obviously the most screen time he's gotten the entire season, which isn't saying much, but that's also kind of I don't want to say the problem, but there's just so many characters.
And
so many things happening.
They're slowly thinning out the herd. You know, now we've got Jace gone. We've got Otto gone. So we're thinning out the... We just killed a bunch of people this episode, so we're slowly thinning out the herd of characters.
Yeah, but none of those characters, like, no main character that we... The last main character that died that we cared about, granted, was earlier this season, only a few weeks ago, was Jace. With Jace's death, that was kind of the big one. But now it's like... I think... We need to wrap this conversation up because we still have two other things, and I know we only have a short amount of time left. But I think one of the other interesting things that they did was, and I'm forgetting her name, so forgive me, but Damon's kid. The one responsible for Jace's death, feeling the guilt, realizing that she it's not the sense where she doesn't understand what she did. She knows full well that she holds responsibility for this, and she knows full well why Rhaenyra feels the way she does. And I actually really like when they do that with a character, because I kind of get sick and tired of characters doing really bad shit and then getting pissed off when people are mad at them for this. No, she fully acknowledges, and granted, the way she's going about making up for that is not the healthiest way. She's pushing herself beyond her limits, but I do like how they, actually are doing something with her that isn't just, why is everyone mad at me? I didn't do anything wrong. No, she knows she did something wrong.
Bela knows exactly what she's been doing, or not what she's been doing, but what she did, and how it's basically turned her against everybody. Maybe with the exception of Daemon. Daemon's probably the only one who hasn't, but he's been so preoccupied doing what Rhaenyra says that he doesn't have time. Especially because we know Daemon does care about his kids. I mean, he literally was trying to come up and formulate a plan with Sheepstealer and I almost said Rhaenys. Rhaenys. Hold on. It's
There's too many goddamn mythical names in this show.
Reyna. Golly, I almost said Rhaenys. Reyna. They're all so similar sounding names too, which makes it so much better. But you got that, and it's just I don't know. Damon's such a convoluted character, but Bela's arc in this episode is really good because it doesn't do much, but it really does emphasize the point of I know what I did was wrong, but now I'm just not even being looked upon by anybody. Like it's just awful, and she hates it. I do like that they finally got Joffrey back into the story.
Yeah,
because that's a big missing piece that we haven't had. So I'm glad we got that back.
He hasn't been seen since what, like middle of season 2, maybe?
Maybe early season 2.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's been a long time.
But I'm glad we got him back, so that's good. Again, everything they did with Damon and Rhaenyra this episode was really good. Again, that final shot is haunting.
Oh yeah, it really caught me off guard. I was not expecting the whole, because again, they're building it up slowly. 2 men die over here, 2 men die over here. He gives this rousing speech. You're like, okay, maybe they'll be able to overtake this. Maybe they'll get at least somewhat of a handle on the situation, and it just goes so unbelievably wrong.
Yeah,
and that's like, that to me, that's the biggest boiling point. Like, Damon is not going to ignore that. Again, I don't watch the ending episode things at the end of these, so I don't know what next episode's going to cover, but I very heavily expect this to not just be a case where this big thing happens at the end of this episode, and then we cut, and then it's not, like, addressed in any major way. Because of how big this was, I'm expecting it to be a pretty big chunk of next episode. And honestly, just the season going forward, because this is the biggest stance of rebellion against Rhaenyra within her own walls.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously being orchestrated outside of the walls, but happening inside.
Obviously being orchestrated outside the walls, but it's
fuck the high towers, but...
Yeah. I don't know. Do you got anything else you really want to say about this episode?
No, I think it was a really good episode. I think it was... Again, I want to remind people, despite our comment, the last 2 episodes were not bad. Not every episode needs a big needs a big action sequence. But
yes,
this is what I'm talking about. This is that episode that isn't your Battle of the Gullet, Rhaenyra taking the throne, but does a really good blend of things happening and things being built. I need both. I know we can't always get that, and it's only been 2 episodes worth of that, but when these episodes are an hour long, it's a fucking movie's length worth of content.
Yeah.
So I think now that we're finally, this episode gave us such a really good blend of, oh, well, the Watch is dead. That's a boiling point. That is a boiling point. We're done building that. That has boiled over. Oh, we have Aegon finally ready to, like, he's killed. That's a boiling point. Maybe a smaller one, but still a boiling point. But you still have the building with the high towers, with freaking Sir Christian Cole. Like, all of these things are still in the building phases with some boiling. Like, some the bubbles are starting to form at the top, if that makes sense, with my boiling analogy.
No, that's a great analogy. Yeah, we're building, still on that incline, but now it's like more of a mountain, like reaching the mountain point, which is really good. If they keep going as quick as they're going, there's some pretty crazy things that are going to happen at the end of the season, which I'm going to be very excited to actually see unfold. But we'll see. That we'll wait till tomorrow for a new episode, of course, because
gotta love Sunday recordings, dude. I'm so pissed, and I know we're not talking about this. I'm so pissed that Lanterns is releasing on a fucking Sunday. Why? Like,
it doesn't surprise me. Peacemaker released on Sundays.
No, I know.
Of course, Lanterns is going to release on Sundays.
I know it's not surprising, and again, it's our own fault for saying we would do this on Sundays with release dates.
Actually, now that I think about it, did Peacemaker release on Sunday, or did it release on like a Thursday?
Now that you mention that, I know we don't have time to super.
You can look that up, because I know Penguin released on Sundays, but Penguin was different. I know that Welcome to Derry released.
It was Thursdays, so it wasn't Sundays. So why is Lanterns on a freaking I guess because it's an HBO series and HBO loves their Sundays, probably.
That's what I would guess.
And this lines up really well. I think almost to the day of the week after the ending of House of the Dragon. I'm pretty
Yeah, it
sure it's
does.
almost immediately end of House of the Dragon, kick into Lanterns. So that
Yeah.
probably had a big sway in things, where obviously there's no relation between House of the Dragon and Lanterns, but there is the mind share of what people are watching. And so House of
Yeah.
the Dragon ends, let's replace that, let's give them Lanterns. Now that I think about that, I think that probably played a non-negligible role.
X-Men 97.
Yep.
Season 2,
Episode
6.
Yep.
5, 6,
Is
6.
Is it?
It's 6.
I was gonna say,
It's
I'm pretty
6.
sure it's 6 because last week was 5.
Brandon, go ahead and give me your thoughts.
X-Men 97 Season 2 Episode 6 is a great episode. It was action-packed, it was emotional, it was very well animated as always. It did everything an X-Men 97 episode needed to do. I think obviously some of the build-up is a little hurt by the fact that we're paying off stuff that happened 2 weeks ago, because we had the weird filler break episode that I think we talked about last week, so I won't harken on too much, but very much broke up the pacing, which I just hate that they did that. But I think Charles being the main focus of this episode, with Polaris being Magneto's daughter, I think that was a really, really compelling through line for this. Having the Danger Room be the representation of, I guess, Charles's guilt. I don't think it was the perfect representation. I really liked it. I think the Danger Room is an X-Men villain. It's been done before, and it's not like a surprise. I don't think it was necessarily the perfect villain to kind of play into this, but I don't think it was a bad choice, because I do think it is able to allow them, the Danger Room being the AI that knows everything, and be able to launch insults at them and show them holograms of things. And I think all of that stuff just worked really, really well to kind of show, not just tell, the guilt that both Polaris is feeling and especially Charles is feeling. And so when we go back to Genosha and we're having that final battle, it's very symbolic. It's very symbolic of that battle where they're having to give up their guilt, and doing it at a place that holds so much animosity, additional guilt, and just like pent up rage at the same time, I think is a perfect setting ground for this battle to occur. I think it's very funny that Charles's solution to the government hating the X-Men and Polaris leaving is, let's start a corporation. Let's turn this into a billion-dollar corporation. What gets the government turning other than offshore bank accounts and corporations and shell organizations? I think that was just so funny to me. Was Charles' solution was like, corporation. I'm like, okay, Charles. Okay, Elon Charles here. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? Overall, though, I think it was a great episode. Again, I loved Charles's guilt. I loved Polaris coming in and being that second focus, and I think they shared the screen very well. They kind of had their separate plot lines that came together at the end, but they weren't separate in sense of theme. They were just separate in sense of happening, not at the same, like happening across the world from each other and then kind of coming together. I think all of that stuff was just so great. Their dialogue scenes in X-Mansion, Charles trying to offer that place of sanctuary that he's always wanted to build, doing it to carry on Magneto's legacy. Again, absolutely, it was a great episode. I don't think it's like the peak episode of this season, but I think, especially coming off of a filler episode, I think it was definitely really good to kick us back into the main story.
Look, this episode, at least in my mind, very good. But it's very similar to last week in my mind, where it's in a lot of ways, a one-off story. It's still told within the parameters of, okay, now we've got all the X-Men back together. But it solely focuses on Polaris and her arc, and it's a good arc. I actually would argue this is objectively better. Not. Why am I pretending like it isn't? It is 100% better than what they did last week with a Wolverine and Morph arc, but it still is very just that episodic. Like, it didn't really have too much beyond the X Corp factor of an impact on the main story with Apocalypse, just solely focusing on Polaris here, which is good. But it was not what I was expecting, especially because, again, when you look at episodes 1 through 4, it's all seemingly one continuous story that feeds into another, even if it is like in an episodic adventure like the X-Force thing. They do feed into each other very well dealing with Apocalypse. So far, nothing since episode 4 has dealt with Apocalypse, and we're almost to the end of the season, and this is what we've been building with, is the Apocalypse things. So it just makes me sit here and go, where are we actually going to go with this season? Are we putting filler in this on purpose because we really don't have enough story to tell amongst the rest of these episodes? Or are we genuinely just telling filler because we think it's the best idea? I don't know. It's a good episode. It's just purely my complaint is the fact that like I don't feel like this episode's going to have any impact on the grander scheme of the universe. Especially if this is an episode that it can be just told in like a 10-minute vignette attached to another episode. It could. You very well could do it. But I do like the ideas that they came up with it. I like the Danger Room coming alive, being the thing that kind of like villain of the week, I guess. It just creates something new. So yeah, I don't know. All in all, okay episode, I guess.
I'm curious, because your comments about this not playing a big role in the story going forward, I understand why you would think that, but I just so disagree with you, because the main focus of this episode is Charles and Polaris's guilt. And yes, Polaris wasn't a main character. She was introduced during the X-Force episode, which I believe was episode 2 of this season, in X-Men 97, not in general in the X-Men world. But in X-Men 97, she was reintroduced in that episode. And so I get feeling that she isn't as important, but a big focus of this episode was Charles's guilt of Magneto's death. That's actually like how we start off, is him in the Danger Room, reliving these moments, trying to move on and, I guess, punish himself in a way, but also use it to grow. And I think that is a very necessary thing to happen. Yeah, I agree. It's not the most interesting. It's not big battles, which is what we got with the Danger Room. But when it comes to actual story, like, we needed Charles dealing with this. We needed Charles, like, this to happen. And I think that it being done in this way, I think was just really well done. And I think does play in to, yeah, not Apocalypse, but still the story as a whole.
My lawn people are back. It's great. Making appearance once again. This is great. This is good. No, I think that the Professor X stuff was fine. I have no problem with that. But I almost wish that was the center focus of the episode and not the Polaris thing. Like, I feel like the role should have been reversed, where you should have flipped it. But I get what they were going for. They were showing that Charles himself has grown as like a, my God, my God, 2 weeks, Brandon, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They show that Charles is growing as a person and moving on through Polaris. So I get the idea. I just think that it should have been reversed. Like, we should have spent more of a time focusing on Charles's guilt in the beginning. So again, this isn't a bad episode by any means. It's just, it makes me feel like the roles should have been reversed a little bit.
What do you mean
evenly.
by the roles should have been reversed? Because I feel like Charles was the main focus of this episode.
Polaris was 100% the main focus of this episode. Anybody, like, Charles's guilt is kind of taking a back step later. Sure, you start off with Charles, but then you like basically dip off for a little bit, spend like, it's like, okay, if this is a 40-minute episode, you spend maybe 7 minutes with Charles's guilt, then you have Polaris all the way through to the last maybe like 10 minutes of the episode, then you kind of rope it all back in together. It should have been reversed, where you should have dealt with Charles more, Polaris should be in between it, and then you, because like, I didn't really feel like you had as much connectivity in the payoff as you could have if you had balanced both storylines out a bit more. It's just my thought. I know it's more of a preference thing. I'm not going to be the only one who says this, but I feel like I'm going to be in a minority here when I say this. I just feel like this episode could have been done just slightly. It could have been slightly brought together more as far as like plot lines and characters, and not feel so not disconjointed, because they very much connect, but like unbalanced, I think is the best way to say it.
I guess I just don't agree. I think that it was done very well. Again, I don't think this is an incredible, mind-blowing episode, but I think what they did do and how they did decide to split the time, for me, it worked. Because, again, you need to have a character there to help Charles through. It can't just be Charles by himself. I don't think that works as well. And so adding in a character who can... I don't want to say connect with this grief, because I don't think Polaris was grieving in any way. She was more coming at it from the angle of, I don't want to be my father. I am not my father, because you start out with her being kind of thrown insults as Magneto's daughter. And so she's more having to deal with not being identified with this man, which is kind of juxtaposed with Charles, who does want to carry on the legacy of Magneto. So I think that's what makes it interesting, and why I do feel like the focus being split and the way it did works is because you have Charles, who wants to carry on Magneto's legacy, wants to be more like Magneto, understands the necessary evil that he played as much as they fought. And then you have Polaris, who is very against becoming her father, very against anything that he stands for and being recognized as such. And so that kind of coming together and then realizing more of Charles being able to move forward and Polaris being able to move forward in their own ways, but together, if that makes sense.
I guess, yeah. Let's talk more about some of the other things that are in this episode. Jean and Scott are in this episode. They don't really do a whole lot, though.
I was gonna be honest with you. I was gonna joke and be like, they are, but like honestly, legitimately,
they don't do anything. They're just kind of there.
Yeah.
Which again, but that also kind of furthers my complaint which is like, we are dealing with this big looming threat and outcome that we set off the season so wonderfully with all the stories interconnecting themselves, with all of them being separate. And now, like, I get we're dealing with this guilt storyline, but I don't think we have enough time.
We have three episodes left. We have three episodes left. We have 3 episodes left.
Unless they're not planning to end the apocalypse storyline. Unless they're not planning to end this apocalypse story this season, I just don't see how we have enough time to kind of justify its end, like, perfectly here.
We have 3 episodes left, and I'm not going to read you the titles of those episodes, but they have the titles out there. We do have 3 episodes left, and I think if they focus on Apocalypse, I'll have no problem, because you're talking about pacing. Here's the thing. Let me remind you. 3 episodes focused on Apocalypse, 2 episodes not, 3 episodes focused. That's only 2 episodes out of the whole season that aren't the core focus of Apocalypse. And granted, this episode is the core focus of Apocalypse. Last week is the only episode that had nothing to do with Apocalypse.
Apocalypse is not the core. He's a part of this episode. The ramifications of what he did are affecting this episode. That's what I mean, is it's continuing the storyline of Apocalypse. Sure, but I still feel like it's meandering a little bit. And I say this, and this is why I don't think we have enough time to tell the story correctly, is because now we've introduced a new element, which I want to hear you say, Carson, you were right. Brandon, I'm wrong, because I told you last week that they were going to do this. I've even thought about it. Gambit is back. He is an Apocalypse. He's one of the 4 horsemen.
I'm the one that said that.
What did I say?
I brought it up. I brought up I'm almost positive it was me that brought up the fear of them bringing back Gambit and Magneto. Now, granted, they've only done Gambit, but that presumes that they could easily do the same thing to Magneto. Well, I guess maybe not so much, because Magneto's body is vaporized in a time far away.
I was about to say.
But I think I talked about the fact that they could bring I'm the one that brought that up. So I will not be saying no shit on this podcast about that. Maybe I'll clip in if I did say that, but I don't.
Clip it if you did, because I'm fairly certain that you didn't, and that I was the one who either brought it up or that I was the one who was like on board with the idea.
No, I think you were on board with it. I'm not saying you were against it, but I don't think I was. You say that in the sense of the way you built that up was that I was disagreeing with you. I did not. I do not remember disagreeing with you.
I mentioned I was saying you didn't like that idea.
And I still stand by that. That has nothing to do with what happened, though. All we know is that he came back, and I don't like that. That's the point.
Yes. Yeah. Again, the idea of Gambit being back, I like. I'm still on board with that. Now I'm nervous because we only have 3 episodes left, and we're dealing with that subplot. So unless this final episode ends up being like 40 minutes and is like double the length of a traditional episode, I don't.
Season 1 though. Season 1 was the final was 3 episodes. The final payoff of the villain, which had arguably less build up than this season did, because you had 2 filler episodes left, or not 2 filler episodes. You had the Storm plotline, which was totally separate to the main plotline. That had 2 episodes half dedicated to it. And you had the entire Mojo episode. This season is better paced than last season, in my opinion. I think you need to rewatch season 1, because the season 1 pacing, in my opinion, is worse than this season so far. We've only had a single episode that did not deal with the main plot. And yes, Apocalypse didn't show up in this episode until the end, but we still needed to deal with Charles's guilt, and that still has to do with the main plotline. Yeah, it's not fighting Apocalypse, but we have 3 episodes left to do that. We defeated our main villain in 1 episode last season. He didn't appear until, he dealt with 3 episodes. So I think you're misremembering the pacing of season 1, because it's very similarly paced to this one.
Okay, then let me put it this way. Apocalypse is a much bigger deal and a much bigger villain and a much bigger thing to deal with than last season. Sue me if somebody else believes that I'm wrong about that, but I think Apocalypse is probably with the exception of Magneto, Apocalypse is the most iconic X-Men villain outside of Magneto.
I don't disagree with you on that. I just don't think that the way they're handling it is bad up until this point.
I'm not saying it's bad. Again, you're misconstruing my words here. We're both saying the same thing as far as it's not bad. It's just in my mind, it's not what I thought they were going to do, and it's not exactly like.
I think that's your own fault, though, because this is how X-Men seasons are structured. It's literally the same as they did last season. And yeah, you can make the argument that Apocalypse isn't as big, or is a bigger villain, so needs more time. I think you're doing yourself a disservice by thinking that. But this is how animated X-Men series is structured.
Okay, then this is what I'm going to say. I've said how I want it, how I think it should be. If this ends up being lackluster or rushed to the very end, then we can open up the dialogue. I'll be open about it. If this ends up feeling like it's rushed and lackluster, then I will voice my opinion on it. Until then, let's just talk about the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, I think it's so hard to sit here and talk about this and judge it when we don't know how it's going to end. We don't know what we know the titles of the next episodes, but that doesn't mean we know what the episodes are going to cover or what they're actually going to be about and how they're going to tie into the X-Men plot or the Apocalypse plot line with the X-Men. So I think that prejudging it, again, especially when I love last season, very, very similarly paced. And I think anyone who thinks otherwise and thinks that the pacing in this season is worse needs to go back and watch last season. Because you had the Storm plotline, which had nothing to do with the main villain other than her own overcoming of guilt, which got 2 episodes, not just 1 like Charles got. And we had the Mojo episodes. You had more episodes of not tying into the plotline than we've gotten so far in this season.
Hey man,
because Mojo episode was episode 3.
Let's just not fucking think about Mojo. I don't want to think about Mojo. Nobody wants to think about Mojo.
Well, unfortunately, the next episode is titled Mojo Returns. So, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I don't think any of these episodes are gonna do with Mojo. I think they if they know what they're doing, they are not bringing Mojo back ever.
Sure.
But
But yeah, again, Charles's guilt's good in this episode. The way that he just is in the danger room rewatching everything is tragic, but I love it because he's trying in any possible ways. Like, is there anything I could have done? Is there anything I could have done to say? But he literally can't. And Charles is right. If the roles were reversed, Magneto probably would have found a way to stop it. And it's only because Magneto was wearing that damned helmet that Charles could not have done anything.
Well, and then once his helmet got removed, it was too late. Was his helmet removed? No, it wasn't. No, I don't know why removed. His helmet was thrown to him afterwards.
Like when his body disintegrated, the helmet was the only thing that survived.
Yeah, no, I forgot. He was lifted up by the helmet, not by... And I think Apocalypse probably did that intentionally so that Charles couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
But I think that... Yeah, no, I really liked that.
I like the way they use Storm and Forge in this episode. Again, when the other characters aren't like a center focus, there's not like too much to like sink your teeth into beyond like the rich storytelling of like Charles's guilt, and that's
I think again the big thing that happened with them was was so funny because it's like Storm and Forge, or Storm specifically, but with the help of Forge, is going to take over the Institute in my stead, and they're the new head mistress of X Mansion. And we're a corporation now in another country, and that never mattered because Charles is leading us again.
Setting up the fact of, oh yes, we are bringing back the X-Men, the school's back, the kids are back. Oh, and now we're a corporation.
I think it's smart.
Great.
I think it's smart because it is much harder for the U.S. government to come after them when they're a foreign corporation and they're not like a school or a team. Like they have sanctity. Now, obviously, the government's going to argue that sanctity. And I think that, again, that's where the X-Men really shine, is when they're in contention with either the people or the government. Because, like, it's so infuriating, but so intriguing, and I guess engrossing, when you're watching the government be just, like, idiots. Where you're like, why are we blaming the X-Men for this? Oh, well, because Magneto. Well, that was Magneto, not the... Oh, well, the X-Men let it... Like, you can see where they're coming from, but obviously you still hate where they're going with it.
Magneto was also an X-Men for, like, a few days. I mean...
But he also tried to blow up the entire world. This
is true.
That's the thing. He was an X-Men for only a few days. What did he try to do in those few days? You know, cause the world to go into a global blackout and almost rip it to shreds. So,
thanks, Magneto.
So, I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying I don't agree with the U.S. government's actions. I think they're heinous. Boy,
I will say though, I did miss that character's presence. Like, if there was anything that was missed this episode, it was Magneto's presence.
That's kind of the point. I think is you're supposed to feel the loss of Magneto.
Well, I also know that it's not going to stick. I know it's not going to stick, because if they're bringing back Gambit, at some point they will bring back Magneto.
I hope to God not. I think that's just such... I hope the only thing that will make Gambit coming back feel good is if he comes back, fights for Apocalypse, but doesn't get to live as himself again. Like, if he gets to come back as an X-Men and just be totally scot-free, happy after the end of this, he kind of like how Archangel, where Archangel was Angel and then we was made a kind of a herald of Apocalypse, and then it goes to him now as Archangel but fighting for the good guys. I hope they don't do that with Gambit, where he gets turned into a herald of Apocalypse, changes his look to be cool, but once they're done, he gets to stay and be the good guy again, because I think, again, that takes so much steam out of what was an incredible episode with episode 4 of season 1.
So you could have it be in the case of, like, at the end of the battle, he, like, still doesn't know who he is, doesn't remember the things that he's done with the X-Men. He doesn't have to be evil. But I'm also saying he doesn't have to rejoin the X-Men either. He can go off, do his own thing, and then every once in a blue moon, he comes back for an episode because they just happen to coincidentally be... Like, you can build that slowly over time, and I'd be okay with it. Like, I don't want this to be an immediate term. I want this to be at the end of this season, Apocalypse fails, Gambit's alive, Rogue maybe tries to talk to him, but he just walks away. At some point next season, he comes back, nothing really sticks. same thing later in the season. Then you have like another season after that where it's like, okay, he's starting to come around a little bit because he's maybe not remembering who he is, but he's accepting the life that he's kind of like in now, and he reads more, like almost like a Winter Soldier type thing with Bucky, where he read about himself in a museum. I've read about Steve in a museum, and like he slowly started to come around and remember who he was vaguely because of those things. You know, you could do something like that where it's built slowly over time, and I'd be more okay with it. But if it's just like an instant turn, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like that.
I think the slow turn, if done well, I don't think I'll love it, but I think I won't be sitting on this podcast going worst decision ever. I'll be going, I wish they didn't do that.
Sure.
Last thing I want to talk about, unless you have anything else, and I think this is,
No,
maybe I'm
fine.
misremembering. Was Rogue in this episode? Did we ever see Rogue?
I didn't see Rogue, which I think was done on purpose.
I am very curious to see what we do with Rogue, because obviously Magneto is dealing with this and having a very hard time dealing with the loss of Magneto, a friend for decades. Obviously Polaris isn't feeling like mourning, but she's still dealing with it. There's one character left who has that much to mourn and that much to care about, and I think, I don't want to say has more than Charles, but she lost Gambit, who in her arms, she loved Gambit and wasn't able to do anything about his death, but still had to witness it, and he died saving her, and it was so beautiful and so emotional. She wasn't even there to even remotely help, and I'm curious to see how that plays into... We saw what happened after she lost Gambit. She went and destroyed military bases after she lost Gambit. What is she going to do after losing the other person? The person that she left Gambit for. She left Gambit for Magneto, mainly for reasons that, like, she loved Gambit more, but was able to be with Magneto and didn't want to lead Gambit on. I don't agree with it, but I understand where her decisions are coming from. But now she's lost him. And I think, again, that's where maybe they can do some interesting stuff, because she now has lost Gambit, lost Magneto, but then Gambit comes back, but it's not the Gambit she knows. I guess maybe they could play around with that in an interesting way. I don't know if I'll like it. Only time will tell. But that's just one other thing that, like, I don't remember seeing Rogue, and we very deliberately... I think the first scene we saw after Gambit died in the next episode... that wasn't a filler episode with Storm or whatever, was... Look, it was interesting, but I'll call it as it is, was Rogue destroying military bases.
It was. So, we'll see what happens. We didn't see her because they're clearly trying to... I swear, if it becomes a filler episode with Rogue, like for next episode, and we once again have nothing really to do with the main plot, and it's just Rogue dealing with her guilt... I'm going to be really impactfully interested in it, but I'm also going to be the most frustrated human being in the world because I really want to see this
I don't get
happen, and I want to see it.
I don't get where your frustration comes from on that, because I think season one still was
it's more
worse
fear
at it. But
it's more fear than frustration, but we'll see. That's weeks to come. I'm just speculating, and speculation, is not really going to help. Curiosity killed the cat. But X-Men 97, I give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, I enjoy this
Good
episode. I think that overall, I think even if these... Well, I guess I can't say this definitively. If the next 3 episodes are as good as the last 3 episodes of season 1, I think this will still be an extremely, extremely good season of television.
Sure.
I don't know if they can live up to season 1, though, and I think that was something we knew from the beginning just because of how good season 1 was. But as much as I love these first 3 episodes, and I think they're really good episodes, at least, like, obviously the first 3 and then obviously the 4th episode, I think are all really good episodes, I still prefer the start of season 1, and so, with how much I love the end of season 1, the only way this season can reach the highs is by having the second half be better than the second half of season 1, which, again, they could do. They could easily do. I don't think they will, but I think that so far I'm loving the season. It's just, obviously, it's not the highs of season 1. And if you expected that, I think it's fair. But it is obviously, it's always, you're doing yourself a disservice if you always expect something to be always better. I mean, hell, Invincible Season 2 is the worst season of Invincible. And then Invincible Season 3 is probably the best season of Invincible. So who's to say? Wait, you disagree? You don't?
That's a different conversation entirely.
Do you think, are you the Season 1 train, I'd assume?
I'm Season 1. I think Season 1 objective. I think the ending of Season 3 is better. I think Season 1
I disagree. I think Season 3 is overall better. I think Season 1's ending is better. But that's not that's not a debate for this podcast.
Season 2. Shut up.
Bang! Fake nerd!
Yeah. But no, if somebody says Season 2 of Invincible's the best season, shoot them immediately. They are incorrect or they are not.
Don't let them cook. Never let them cook.
Never let them say anything because that's just factually inaccurate.
Yeah.
Brandon, big talking point, big time for you. Brandon, go ahead and give me your thoughts on Aang, the Last Airbender. Or Avatar Aang, the Last Airbender. I don't know what the official title is.
It's technically Avatar Aang, the Last Airbender. I'm going to call it Aang, the Last Airbender.
I'm just going to call it Aang and leave it at that.
I view Aang, the Last Airbender from 2 points. Kind of like I did with The Odyssey. One, as a movie, and one, as a huge fan of the Avatar franchise. As a movie, I think this is a really good movie. I had a lot of fun with it. I think it is visually incredible. I think other than some very few and nitpicky points where the 3D just didn't mix as well with the 2D, that's kind of always the problem that you run into when you mix 2D with 3D. I think other than that, this movie looks genuinely incredible. It is animated so flawlessly, very dynamic. The action sequences, it is amazing. It's easily the best animation we've ever gotten in the show. I think the downsides come in. I liked the voice cast. No one returned from the main voice cast, and I think it kind of shows. I do think the voice cast, while being serviceable to good, it's just not the originals, which to me makes no sense because they're older characters now, so the actors being older, I think, makes sense. I don't know why they didn't bring anyone back. I think that's kind of stupid. But I think even just looking at it from that perspective, I think the voice acting is kind of hit or miss for me at points. I think the pacing is very fast. It's like an hour and 20-minute movie. It's very breakneck. And I do think that leads to a lot of the twists feeling very unearned or predictable because they have to set them up and then pay them off pretty quickly. I predicted every single twist that happened, and I think they set up the God, what's the names? I'm forgetting. They set up the Denied to be the main villain of this, and then completely forgot about them until the end, and really only used them as a convenient plot device. I think it was very much they set them up, they're very interesting, they're getting the map, and then they come back and they're chasing, and then we never really care about them. They had like a one line of dialogue on the airship where it was like, oh, we're out for vengeance, we were denied, we were forgotten. I think that as a movie, that's just very poor setup. Obviously, they turn up to be not the main villain, and I do think that while I predicted that twist, it was very good in sense of what it means and does for Aang as a character. I think that some of those elements as a movie didn't work for me as much. Now, as an Avatar fan, I fucking love this movie. This movie's amazing. This movie is such a blast. I think just even if their voices don't sound the same, the mannerisms of the characters are exactly the same. Sokka dropping jokes left and right, I loved. This movie is absolutely hilarious. I think just being able to see all the characters coming together, Katara being the protective mother figure, I think obviously makes total sense and is just... It's so nice to be back in this world. I think what they do for the lore of Avatar, obviously a big question for this, knowing where the characters end up in Korra, is how do you make a movie after the end of such a great season of television with the third season of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and then knowing where things go in Korra, how do you make a worthwhile movie? I don't know. I feel like they did a good job of making it feel justified while also making it feel self-contained enough to not be like, oh, this should have been just another season of television. No, I think it makes sense for it to be a movie and having all the characters come back together for this purpose. Also, I gotta throw this out there. Fuck Zutara. Because they made a joke about Zuko and Katara being a couple and then immediately dispelling that. I had to pause the show. I was laughing so hard. That shit was absolutely hilarious. If you know anything about the Avatar fan base, that shit means something and it's like genuinely hilarious joke. But again, I think as an Avatar fan, I loved it. It's well animated. It's great to see our characters back together. It's absolutely hilarious. As a movie, I think there's a lot of flaws in the sense of it's very, very fast. Yes, obviously the twist villain matters more than the Denied, but I still think the Denied are simply just there to act as a plot device that you don't care about, very throwaway characters. And so I'm left very happy as an Avatar fan. I think as a movie fan, it's not forgettable, it's still very good. It's just not the highs that I wish it would have been.
This movie was shit. No. I'm joking.
I'm joking. You.
I'm doing it again. All right, let me back up. Zone in. Lock in. So my history with this show is that I have no history. I've never watched this show until very, very recently. I was a SpongeBob kid. That's what I grew up on. So I loved that show growing up. And some of those early seasons of SpongeBob are outstandingly hilarious. That being said, this is a much more enriching kids show. Just talking about the show itself first, filled with some wonderful storylines, filled with some beautiful character moments in a literal kids show of all things that shouldn't even really have to apply. You could tell the most basic story and kids could really enjoy it, but the fact that it's heightened with a story that's pretty enriching is really good. Everything with Uncle Iroh, Zuko being my favorite character in this entire damn franchise. I loved everything they did with that character. My big fear going into this movie was that they'd have to undo all of the things that they did to wrap up the story so nicely at the end to tell a story. And I'm happy to say that I was blown away by the fact that they didn't really have to do that. I thought this was a natural continuation of this story. It makes sense. Does it feel unnecessary still? Yes, but in the same sense that Toy Story 4 and Toy Story 5 were also unnecessary. Whereas if you can tell a good enough story that like is perfectly fine and tells a story that people want to see and keeps the legacy of your property going on, I think it works very well. Here they do the same thing, and they do it with a very interesting approach. Because now all the characters are older, and I'm going to get the hot take out of the way now, and I'm going to put it on clips so I can get absolutely roasted online. Do not hate me. One of the things I didn't necessarily like about that original show, yes, because it's a children's show and it's a bit more childish, is some of the voice acting from the children. It was great, but I did find them annoying at times. I did. So I was so much happier when they were older, because I actually felt like it was a little more grounded this time around, now that they're all older, and it was a quicker, straight to the point story with all the characters. I kind of really enjoyed that. I also am going to say, as a hot take, because even though I think that that last season, I already talked to Brandon off camera, that last season of the show is really well done, especially when like you see where it started and it's just kind of like very episodic and, you know, whatever early on in the seasons. Season 3 is really good of the show, and so with the exception of that storyline, I think this film is probably my favorite thing that they've done, just again because they are older. They're not dealing with anything that's like darker situation wise, but they're I think that it's the actual just storyline itself, the way how old the characters are, the feeling and the stakes that are involved in it. I just was able to be invested in it more than I was in the actual show. Again, not to say that I wasn't invested. Season 3 is the best thing to come out of that show and of the property. But that's just kind of like how I felt walking into it. That being said, this film does have some flaws. I think that the whole film itself is incredibly fast paced, and it's just going one thing to the next. So it doesn't feel like when you get to a resolution that you feel the emotional punch of what you're probably supposed to be feeling, but the ideas are correct in how they're set up. Aang is not the last Airbender. He's also not even the last Avatar, mind you. There is somebody here who is an Avatar and another Airbender who, you know, is trying, like, it's a good idea, but then it also becomes predictable because the second I figured out, like, I never told Brandon this, but when Dave Bautista was in this movie and I heard his voice, I go, oh, so he's the villain. I don't care how they're approaching this. In some way, shape, or form, he's going to end up being the villain, in no doubt in my mind. This film is predictable. It is very predictable, but it's still enjoyable through the predictability. As long as you make your film fun and have enough enjoyment with some jokes and some more classic things that the show was so good at. My Cabbages guy, thank you for making an appearance. It creates a really special experience for fans, and I think if you're a newcomer of it, I think honestly this is an okay thing to watch, even if you haven't seen the previous like show, because they do a nice job of setting everything up in this film as well. But obviously, the emotional resonance of these characters, you're not really going to get as much unless you've watched the previous show. But overall, kind of putting in a nice bow. I enjoyed my time with this. I thought it was great. But I will say it is certainly a far from perfect legacy sequel because it is, at the end of the day, a very unnecessary sequel.
Yeah, I can agree with you again. Coming from as a fan of Avatar, I know you just watched the series, and I'm more of a I've watched this series twice. I watched it. I wouldn't say growing up as like a young kid, but like I wasn't that far behind on Avatar, and I again kind of grew up with it in a way, and I've watched it. Like I am a lot bigger and more engrossed in the fandom than you are, and so I think that is what allows me having more of the history. Like, God, what's an example? I thought of an example before this. I mean, I think a great example would be like you cared way more about the ending of The Boys or even like a Stranger Things than I did because those are shows that you've been watching for, in the case of Stranger Things, what, nearly a decade? In the case of The Boys, 6 years, week by week, season by season, episode by episode. I'm not saying I watched it like sitting down at Nickelodeon, but like I watched it growing up and more as a kid. I wasn't a SpongeBob kid. So this more is my moment of sitting there and watching these characters that I know and love and going, oh, I care. I care. This is for me. This is my shit happening. And that's where, again, I had to evaluate it as a movie where I think it is a flawed movie, but as a fan, I overlook most of that stuff and just go, wow, that's just so much fun. In fact, I didn't tell you this. I've watched this movie almost twice all the way through.
Jeez Louise.
I finished it and I started it again. And then unfortunately we had to start recording, so I wasn't able to watch it all the way through a second time. But I've almost watched this movie entirely through twice.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy considering that we recorded this early and whatnot.
Yeah.
And no, I know it's going to be a hot take, and I'm going to be burnt at the stake for saying that I kind of like this film more than the entire property of the show. But the reasons behind it are just like subjective things. Again, I didn't grow up with this as a kid, so I didn't have the attachment to the voice actors that everybody does. I also sometimes find kid voice acting can be very annoying at times. And I also just don't like some of the, don't get me wrong, it's not SpongeBob level humor or poop fart joke, Minions level humor, but some of the jokes in there are meant more for kids. So there were a lot of times I didn't really find much things funny. So it was harder for me to connect in those moments. Unlike if I was a kid, I probably could have connected better. Here it's very different because you don't really have any of that. Also, it's fast paced, so you're not really getting those moments like that. But I was able to connect a lot better with this film because they're a bit more older and this and that. It's just a little weird. So again, if I say the movie I think is better, like I'm going to be burnt at the stake, I know, but like I think you can objectively or subjectively understand where I'm coming from.
I think other than the third season, I don't think that's a terrible take. I think the third season might be better. But I think overall I love the first two seasons or books or whatever. I can't entirely fault you for feeling that way because I think season 3 is just so good.
Yeah.
But as a fan, this movie it really does. Again, you brought it up where it's like, and I brought it up, I'm like, is this movie going to feel worth it? Is this like a needed sequel? No, but they made it feel worth it. It was good enough to justify. I think a great example of that would be, and I guess you can make the argument on maybe a little different, but Ready or Not. We reviewed Ready or Not 2 earlier this year, a sequel to a movie that came out, freaking 7 years ago or something like that? Nearly a decade ago, I think.
2019. Yeah.
Was it 2019 was one?
2019 was one.
6 years. No, 7 years.
Longer.
2019 would be 7 years. So 7 years ago is Ready or Not. So less of a gap than this, but we talked about where it's like that movie ended. We didn't really feel the need for a sequel, and it's been so long. Why do we need it? And Ready or Not 2 was so good that it justified its existence. I think this movie does something very similar where you can look at it and go, did we really need this? No, but it's so good, it justified its existence.
So let's start with this, because I think this is very just the best part of this. These are the best visual effects in an animated movie I think I've seen in a long time. Like this was beautiful.
Yeah,
the mix of 2D and 3D worked so well, and you could tell that the people behind it were passionate about the project they were making. But usually I complain about this. The fight scenes were very chaotic and hard to follow. I was kind of okay with that for this because it worked really well. And it wasn't like all the time, but like just the first few shots like of Aang walking through the air temple, and he's placing I don't know what you call it, the little statue. I don't know what you exactly call it. But just him walking through that, like the vines, the flowers, that all felt real. And then when Aang walks into shot, like he doesn't feel real. He's animated clearly. Like everything around him in the environment felt so real. Like, not on the same level like Toy Story 4.
I get what you mean, though.
You get what I mean.
Yeah, no. Well, and it's funny because we talked about this off air when we were talking about the season. Since we weren't going to review the whole season, we were just going to review the movie. Avatar is very, very heavily influenced by anime. The first or the show as a whole is very heavily influenced by Japanese anime. This movie is just an anime movie. Like the animation style, just the whole production of this literally feels like it was ripped straight out of Japan. And it is so, like, it is the best animation we've gotten. Granted, it's been over a decade since the show came out, so of course it's going to be better. We've had better technology, but like, it's just so, again, my only complaints are nitpicks, and that's because I have a hard time sometimes overlooking small, I guess, details when it comes to the bad mix between 2D and 3D. I think for the most part, they did an amazing job. I think there were very few moments, though, where I looked at it and I was like, I don't love that. But again, it's such a nitpick. And when the action sequences are happening, I'm sitting there going, golly, take me. Like, this is incredible.
This is great. Yeah, no, I think that's like one of the best things about this film. Like, you could have had like I wish this was a silent film in a lot of ways, because
I disagree. I thought the score was amazing.
No, but like, when I mean silent film, I mean like, I really wish that like it was just the music, no characters talking, it just fighting. Like, I don't know, it just looked very good.
Yeah.
Everything was very convincing. They did a good job at that. I like what they did with Aang's character in this.
Yeah.
This is the most honestly, this is the most, I think, human story they've given to Aang, where it's like, throughout the course of the show, we dealt with him learning the ability, so there's never really any time to deal with it. But like, the idea that, you know, he is in a lot of ways alone. He's the only airbender. So when you introduce this other airbender, not even just that, but another avatar, he's going to trust that a lot.
Wrong. He is not an avatar. I made a face when you were doing your review. That's not an avatar. He's an airbender. He's not an avatar.
He's not.
No.
He's not.
No.
He's not an avatar.
It's said in the movie. He served an avatar. He is not an avatar.
Okay. I'm sorry. I got confused.
He became super powerful because he took the staff, but there's only ever one airbender at a time. Only ever one avatar at a time. He served the airbender. He himself was not the airbender. It was speculated that he could be, because only an avatar can put themselves in the kind of mana cocoon, but it was then later revealed when the whole twist happened that he was placed in there to be restrained, not because he put himself in there like Aang
but
did.
you can understand why I got confused.
No, I can't, because it's explicitly stated.
Because he had the...
That is a air temple thing, not an Avatar thing. They literally had in the start of this movie, Carson, the whole Airbender thing, all of them had the arrows. Are all of those little children avatars? No!
Hey, buddy, you're getting upset at me for lore that I have no idea.
You
and even if
watched
it's
the
told right in front of me,
show! You act like you didn't watch the show! Did you not pay attention to the show?
I paid attention to the show, but that doesn't mean the lore's going to stick in my head very well.
Airbender, not Avatar.
Well, the thing with, and I'll look it up just to make sure. What's Dave Bautista's character's name?
Tara, Tagar,
Targa.
Togan.
We're just gonna go through the whole. What's Dave Bautista's character's name?
Taga. T-A-G-A-H. Taga, I think, is how you pronounce it. I've watched this movie twice and I can't remember because I'm terrible with names.
Okay, so the reason I got confused and I wasn't thinking about it is because on the design of his character, he has the arrow on his head, so I just wasn't even thinking about it.
Because that's an Airbender thing, not an Avatar thing.
I'm aware of that. It just took me a second to read.
The whole plot was that the Avatar gave him powers. How did you think he was the Avatar if he was given powers by the staff? That was like the whole thing with his character, is that he was given powers by the Avatar.
Again, I'm an idiot.
Correct. You're a Nimrod.
I'm a Nimrod, but I'm also learning the lore to this because I learned it very quickly and I'm still trying to get there. That being said, I got confused by that. That's not important at all. I don't care. Crop out the fact that I called him an airbender or just put
No, we're clipping that. We're insulting. We're getting you ripped apart in the online.
Oh my god, I'm gonna die. Anyway, well, that I don't know where I was going with that because that was a very weird side tangent that now I don't even know where I was going with it. But having Aang trust
another airbender, yeah, I think what you were saying was how you really liked what they did with his character, and I agree, because in the first season or in the show, it very much does focus on him overcoming his guilt in a way where he's overcoming the guilt of running away, but that isn't something that I do feel like they fully closed off in a way that I'm upset that they opened the wound again, essentially. Where it's like they dealt with it, but him still feeling, especially, and I really liked the way that they did this, using the existence of this, the city, the capital city that they've built, and having representation from all of the bending communities, having Aang be the only one to be representing his line of bending, would kind of reopen that wound. And that, again, that being the thing that kind of reopens that, I think makes a lot of sense, because he's sitting in this town, this capital that he's helped build to unify the world, but being like, everyone's with their people but me. I'm with my people, I'm with my friends, but not with my people. I have no people left. And so a lot of this movie is focused on him overcoming, not necessarily the fact that he's alone in a way, because he's always known he wasn't alone. That was a thing they covered in the first show, or in the show. It's more kind of overcoming the guilt of him being responsible for being the only one left of his kind.
Well, and the thing with the show, and he knows he's not alone, but the thing that really makes him listen to Taga more is the fact that he hasn't had this before.
Yeah.
He hasn't had the taste of this before. So when he goes through the show and he goes through the whole arc of I am, getting over my guilt and I know I'm not alone, it kind of goes out the window because he's never had this element introduced. So he still knows it. It's why he, immediately goes against Taga whenever Taga's like, well, we got to do this. Once he figures out the actual plan and truth of what Taga's been doing this whole time. But still, it's the ideology that, even though he knows he's not alone, it goes out the window. Like, if you're... It's like if you're an alcoholic. If somebody slides you a beer that you haven't had in years, you say no. But then if somebody offers you a $10 bill to drink it, then the deal just ups itself.
Yeah, it becomes more
everything
tempting.
Else you had Right. He's never had that
so
before.
Because that's actually a really good point, because not only is he offered another airbender, he's offered that beer, he's offered that $10 bill in the sense of, hey, here's a staff that can create more. Here's the ability
here's
to
a way to
not just be one, not just be two, but be many.
Yeah. And I think I would just want to give it to Dave Bautista because he does a great job voice acting.
Yeah, I think
here.
he is definitely the best voice performance in the movie for sure.
He does a great job in this film. The other actors I think do a good job too. They're clearly like, this is like a Kung Fu Panda type thing where everybody else except Katara is kind of just like pushed to the side a little bit. And it's like, okay, well, they're here. Their presence is felt. They have some big character moments, but like, it's not about them. It's about Aang and about his, kind of journey
so
here.
It's funny that you mention that, because the first time that I watched the movie, that was actually one of my complaints that I had, was like, oh, I really wish, because the show is very focused on this group of friends going through, and the first time I watched it, I was like, man, I really wish, like, if we're going to live in this Avatar world again, we got more of them interacting together. We got more of them together. When I watched it a second time, for whatever reason, like, that just completely went away. I was like, no, I do feel like they're interacting well, and I do feel like they're together, and we have the slow moments, like, after, when they're repairing the ship, or things like that. Like, those small moments. It's not plentiful, but it is small.
You're gonna hate me, because you're going to hate this comparison, but I love this movie, so I'm going to be a little different here. It's like Toy Story 4, where we didn't need the interactions of the other characters because it's not their story. Toy Story 4 is Woody's story.
Well, I thought, okay, you're talking about 4, because I thought you were comparing it to 5.
No.
Because 5,
I
felt like that a lot.
5 also, but 4 more so, because you have Buzz, you have Jesse, and Buzz and Woody interact in this film and whatnot, and there's a lot of great character interactions with Bo Peep and reuniting with old friends and this and that, but it's solely Woody's story, and so you get little it does it more in 4 than 5, especially with the like Bonnie's toys or Andy's toys and whatnot. You have those little interactions, and you have the fun moments that you get to actually let the world feel lived in, but it doesn't solely focus on them. It's not focusing on Jesse. It's not focusing on Slinky Dog or Rex. They're in the movie very much so. They have some one-liners, and they all have some great interactions with one another, but it's not about them.
Well, the movie is titled Aang, so I guess it is fair that he takes center stage.
It makes sense, and so that's why whenever, because I didn't see a trailer for this. I just finished the show, and then immediately just went into watching the movie, like maybe like a few minutes later, because I just was like, okay, it's the morning. I gotta watch this now, because we gotta record in like a few minutes. So I just went ahead and just watched it pretty much like immediately the second I got the chance. Yes, I was tired, but I did it anyway. And so I feel like it's not that big of a deal that they're not in this movie in like a prevalent capacity, because they're there purely for Aang. They're the peanut gallery. They're there for him. It's his story. So I didn't feel hurt by that at all.
Yeah, well, and I guess another reason why, especially like, it definitely on the first time, but especially the second time, where it's like, yes, they might not be the center focus, mainly because the movie is very fast-paced and there's a lot of battles that need... This is way more action-packed than the series ever was. This is like mostly action, actually, which is beautifully animated, but that does obviously come at the behest of not as character-focused on the whole cast. They have to more zoom in on certain ones, Aang being the main one. But I think especially on that second watch, what really, really got me was just how perfect the characters were representative of their original pieces from the show, where it's like Toph making jokes about how attractive Taga was. I love that. I laughed so hard at that. Like those interactions. Zuko acknowledging how attractive it's in the bone structure. God, I was dying laughing.
It's in the bone structure. That's a funny joke. That's clever, but that's why I like this movie more than a lot of what the show did, because that's a fun joke that I actually got a chance to laugh at. I like that Sokka at the very end of the film comes back like full circle. He's got the cart and everything. Yeah, he's coming in saving the day. I'm like, God. Well,
I was gonna bring up Sokka. I love the whole scene where Sokka's running on the steering wheel of the ship, panicked out of his mind, like that. Go. That felt like Sokka. I love how Zuko was such a like brooding character in the beginning, and I think Zuko or the Katara and Zuko joke that happened. I think maybe the second funniest joke in the entire movie was when Zuko was being informed that he got a letter from Aang, and the guy runs in and he's like, he opens up the letter and you see his face, and he's like, and the guy's like, what are you doing? Read the letter. And he starts reading, and he's like, hey, what's up, my homie? How you doing? I hope that bitch in your council isn't bothering you too much. And just everyone just, like, looks back like, it was so funny. It really was.
So I will say this is the one thing that this film did for me personally, and it's that I actually want to see more of this universe with this set of characters.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to. I don't know if we're going to get another film. I really hope we do, because if they can tell a story that's good enough like this, and it's actually like all of them just like connected now, I think that you can have a really fun time with it. I know this, again, unnecessary, but a lot of films aren't necessary nowadays, and they can still be very good.
We have Korra, which I have watched some of. I haven't finished. I know you've watched, obviously, none of, because you only just finished.
Yeah.
But we have Korra, and then we actually literally yesterday or the day before got the first trailer for the Avatar series that takes place after Korra. So it doesn't have to do with Aang or anything like that. It's just a continuation of after Korra's story. So I'm curious. I agree. I'm curious to see if we go back to these characters again after this movie, because I do think now it's the same thing with Toy Story. You've opened the floodgates. Why not make more? I think if you have a story worth telling, obviously I didn't like 5 nearly as much as everyone else, but if you have a story worth telling and you do it well, I wouldn't have a problem now that you've opened the floodgates. If you would have asked me after that first series had ended if I wanted a movie, I probably would say no. Now that we're a few years removed from that and I've watched the series again and I'm older now, I can look back and be like, I'm glad we have this. It was so... I've talked to a few people about this movie already, and they're like 10 out of 10 favorite movie of the year and stuff like that. They are gigantic Avatar: The Last Airbender fans, and while I'm not saying this is my favorite movie of the year, I think it's in my top 10. I don't know where, but pretty confident in being in my top 10. Not because it's a great movie necessarily, or it's the best movie, but it was just enjoyment in seeing these characters again and being back in this world, for me, was just so high.
Well, and experiencing this for the first time, like, again, I can't praise enough how much I actually ended up liking the show, with all the flaws that I do have with it, and the fact that I don't have a connection with it. Am I going to watch this show again? Probably not. But I actually told a friend of mine who has seen the show that I would watch this movie again.
Yeah.
Like, if I genuinely had a hankering and I wanted Avatar, like, fix, I would watch again, which is, again, why I want more. Because I feel like I just entered this world, and I don't feel like I have enough, and I want more from it, because it actually is really well done.
Well, because, again, like, this movie does such a good job of continuing to build out the lore, and giving you the breadcrumbs, and giving you the lost Avatar, and we go outside of on the other end of the endless ocean. Like, it doesn't just take place in one area, because a big part of that original series is it's a journey. You're moving from place to place constantly, and so this movie doesn't replicate that, but it does still have a little bit of a journey element to it to build out the lore.
Yeah. But I think, again, all in all, I think that this is a film that's in my top 10 as of right now. I don't know how long it's going to stay there. But I think it's very well done. I think if you're a fan of the original show, watch it. You're going to have a great time with it. If you're somebody who's trying to get into it, honestly, watch it, because there's no reason you really can't. They literally give you all the lore you need, and that's it. It's really well done.
Oh, okay, so, one last thing. I know you have to
go for it,
so I'll keep this very brief. I think one other complaint that I had, and I'm going to bring it up every time that it happens, and I know I'm going to get hate, but I don't care. I do think that this movie falls into the same trope that a lot of modern movies are falling into, where they bring up the fact that Aang is the last airbender, and the fact that he wants to recreate people, and the fact that that's the purpose of the movie, every 5 minutes. I very much fell for how short this movie is. That kind of brought up the main point of this movie and reminded us what the main point of this movie was a few too many times. I'm the last airbender. I'm the last airbender. I'm the last airbender. I want to bring back more. I want to bring back more. We need to go get this staff. We need to go get this staff. I get it. I get it. I know what we're doing here. You established that at the start of this movie. I do not need to be reminded every 30 seconds. I think that's I don't know if you disagree with me on that. I don't know if you noticed that, but like I did kind of feel that way.
No, it was very Game of Thronesy. She's my queen. You're my queen. And that's all they said there. It was a little reminiscent of it, but I give this more passable than I do Game of Thrones because one's an HBO show that's very adult heavy, grounded in reality, and the other is a children's TV show turned into a movie that's a bit more grounded than the TV show, but still is technically a children's film.
Yeah.
So, I give one more grace than the other.
I guess that's fair. I'm just coming at it from the sense of like, their main demographic for this movie isn't children. It's people who are now adults who grew up watching the show.
Sure. Well, yeah, that's it now.
And
it's like the iCarly reboot that Nickelodeon or Paramount did. Like the show is meant for the people that watched it growing up, but now it's an adult twist, so it's meant for adults. And that honestly, just pointing out, that show actually wasn't half bad. Just saying, really was not half bad. That reboot was not bad.
I never watched it. But yeah, I know you have to go. I'd love to talk about this movie more. But unfortunately, we do have a hard out, and we already started recording this at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm very tired for watching this movie that dropped at 3 o'clock in the morning. So, and having watched it twice, I've been up for a while. But I think overall, wrapping up the thoughts, very good week. Very, very good week overall. Probably the best week in about 3. I think the last 2 weeks were good. But I think we would both admit that, like, I guess The Invite and The Odyssey, actually, no, probably not the best week. I think last week, no. Great week. We've had a great string of weeks. Let's leave it at that. We've had a great string of weeks. I'm thinking back, and I'm like, I said that.
Leave it at that.
I said that, and then I thought back, and I'm like, no, shit, we literally reviewed The Odyssey last week. No, it wasn't better than The Odyssey. And then I was like, what did we review the week? Oh, The Invite? No, it isn't bad. Fuck, okay, no, it's just another string of very good weeks.
A good string of summer blockbusters. You gotta love it.
And you know what, Carson? That streak continues next week when we review
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man does whatever a spider can.
I've already got my tickets. I'm excited.
We have Spider-Man Brand New Day, House of the Dragon, X-Men 97 next week. We have one person who will be joining us confirmed. We might have another. We'll be talking about that off camera. But
we'll see.
Throwing it out there, it will not just be us next week, so look forward to that.
Special guest, yeah. Gotta love it.
Yeah, but Carson, you have anything you want? I'm acting like I'm the host because I'm tired right now and I'm forgetting, but you can kick us in.
I'm tired. It's early. Kick us in. Can I kick us out? Because I think that's where we're. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Nerdy Nimrods podcast. We're going to do this again. No.
Carson, I'm sorry to inform you, but the file was corrupted. I forgot to hit record.
I'll go ahead and kick us out. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you heard, if you like what you saw, give us a like, give us a follow, click that little bell notification. We upload every single Sunday afternoon for your leisure to enjoy. You can find us on all podcast hosting platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, you name it, we're on it. You can also find some of our short form content over on all social media platforms under @NerdyNimrods. Once again, you name it, we're probably on it. But yeah, this has been a very exciting week. I can't wait for next week. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, as always, stay nerdy.